night storyteller, here to keep you company through the quiet hours. Many of you listen to these stories to fall asleep, and I'm honored to guide you there. And before we begin, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps keep the stories alive. Tell me in the comments, where are you listening from? And what time is it on your side of the night? Now, get comfortable, relax, and let's begin. Owen adjusted the last box in his new apartment, stretching his sore back. The place smelled like fresh paint and something older, something beneath the layers of newness. He ignored it. It was just another move, another city, a fresh start. He had never been to the city before. He was sure of that. The apartment was fine, modest, quiet, nestled on the 6th floor of a brownstone. The furniture, second-hand but solid, was arranged exactly how he'd left it last night after unpacking. Except the chair by the window was wrong. Not wrong, just moved. A foot to the left, maybe two. Owen frowned but dismissed it. He was tired, his memory playing tricks. That night he lay awake, the city's distant hum seeping through the window. The apartment creaked, pipes settling wood. Normal things. But somewhere in the dark, he could swear he heard a shift, a subtle scrape like something being rearranged. He didn't get up. The next morning, Owen retrieved the mail wedged under his door. A bank statement. His name was on it, but the date, August 2014, 10 years ago. He blinked at it, flipped through the other envelopes, junk, a pizza flyer, nothing else strange. But when he left for work, his elderly neighbor, Mrs. Kessler, smiled warmly from her doorframe. "Nice to see you again, Owen. Again? I, just moved in," he said. Her smile faltered. "Don't be silly. You've lived here a long time." The words clung to him all day. That night he dreamed of the apartment, but not as it was now. The wallpaper was yellowed, curling at the edges. The floors were scuffed, and his own hands, were shifting furniture, rearranging things. His breath hitched as he caught his reflection in the window. Shorter hair, no scars. Then he woke up, panting. He flipped on the light. The chair, back by the window. A week passed. Small things went missing. A toothbrush, a belt, the book he had been reading. But the photographs changed everything. He had been fixing a loose panel in the wall when he found the box. A small wooden container, old but well kept, tucked inside the space. Inside were photos, dozens of them, all of him. Owen standing in front of the brownstone. Owen leaning against the kitchen counter. Owen in the hallway talking to Mrs. Kessler. Different clothes, different hair, different years. Some black and white, some faded Polaroids. The city outside shifting through time, but the apartment stayed the same. His stomach twisted. One photo showed him standing beside a woman, her arm looped through his, both of them smiling. He had never seen her before in his life. He ran to his laptop, hands shaking. He needed proof, something solid. His email, his old emails. He scrolled back, searching for messages about the move, the lease agreement. They weren't there. All records of his move, gone. He tried his bank next. The website loaded, but the account history. His most recent transaction was dated 2014. His balance wrong, as if he had never left. A cold wave of nausea swept over him. His phone trembled in his grip as he dialed his mother. "Owen," she answered, groggy with sleep. "Mom," he choked out. "Something's wrong. I moved, remember, to the city last month." A pause. "Owen," her voice softened, wary. "You moved there years ago. Don't you remember?" The air in his lungs vanished. "Mom, no, you've lived in that apartment since college. We packed your things together, remember?" He felt dizzy, his fingers clutching at the desk. "Owen?" she asked, uncertain. He ended the call. The next morning he decided to leave. He threw clothes into a duffel, grabbed his keys, and stormed for the door. The handle wouldn't turn, dead-bolted from the outside. His pulse thundered as he twisted the knob, slammed his palm against the wood. A knock sounded behind him. He spun. The bathroom mirror. Something knocked from the other side. His stomach twisted into ice. Slowly he stepped toward it. His reflection stared back, but it was too still. His mouth was dry. He raised a shaking hand. The mirror Owen did the same. Perfectly. Too perfectly. Then it blinked, a fraction too late. Owen staggered back. His breath came in shallow gasps. The reflection, his own reflection, smiled. A knock at the front doors. "Owen, you can't leave." A pause. "You live here. You've always lived here." He turned back to the mirror. His reflection raised a hand and knocked. The sound came from inside the glass. Owen's body stiffened. His breath caught in his throat. His reflection tilted its head, and then it stepped forward. Owen's body seized. He tried to move, tried to breathe, but he was locked in place. The reflection reached toward the glass, toward him. His skin crawled. He could feel it, like an invisible thread pulling him closer. His lips parted to scream, but his reflection beat him to it. It screamed, face twisting in terror, and then it pulled him through. Owen staggered back. No mirror, Owen. He turned, breath still ragged, his head buzzing. The apartment was still. Nothing had changed. Had he just imagined it? His gaze flickered to the front door. It was unlocked. Of course it was. Shaking his head, he chuckled, small, uneasy, moving stress, that's all. With a slow exhale, he stepped forward, caught his reflection in the glass again, and smiled. Outside, the city hummed. Life moved as it always had. In the apartment, Owen sat by the window, eyes dark and hollow, and in the mirror, his real reflection stared back, mouth open, silent, screaming, trapped. The reflection smiled first. The end. Malik's shift should have ended hours ago. His eyelids were heavy, his back ached, and the cheap gas station coffee he'd grabbed earlier had settled into his stomach like tar. But he needed one last fare. Rent was due. So when the ride request pinged his phone, a pickup on the outskirts of the city, just beyond the last row of streetlights, he took it. One last ride, one last mile home. The figure on the curb didn't wave as Malik pulled up. He just stood there, motionless, in the flickering glow of a broken street lamp. A late-night drunk, maybe, or someone who'd been stood up. Malik didn't ask. He just unlocked the doors. The passengers slid into the back seat without a word. The temperature in the car dropped instantly. Malik shivered and rubbed at his arms. Weird. It wasn't that cold outside. The man sat stiffly, his hands folded neatly in his lap. A long black coat draped over his frame, the collar high enough that it obscured most of his face. His breathing was slow, measured. Something about the way he settled into the seat made Malik uneasy. "Hey," Malik greeted, forcing some life into his voice. "Where you headed, boss?" Silence. Malik glanced at the screen. The app glitched, the destination field blank. That was odd. Even with a weak signal, it should have given him something. He tapped the screen. Nothing. A faint ripple of static passed through the speakers, then cut off abruptly. A bad connection. That's all. Malik tried again. "So, where to?" The man didn't respond. Instead, he smiled. It was slow. Wrong. The kind of smile that made Malik's stomach tighten with with something close to dread. A long second passed, then another. Something about that silence felt too deep, as if the man was waiting for something. Malik let out a breath and started driving. "All right, man, I'll take you downtown and you just let me know where to stop." The city blurred past in streaks of orange light, but it felt strangely lifeless. No late-night walkers, no other cars, just Malik, the passenger, and the quiet hum of the engine. A glance in the rearview mirror. The man was sitting closer, not much, just enough to make Malik's throat go dry. Had he moved? Malik swallowed and forced a laugh. "So a long night?" No answer. The man just sat there, his thin smile stretching ever so slightly. Malik's hands tightened on the wheel. "Just get through the ride." He pressed the button to unlock the doors, just in case the guy decided to pull something weird. Nothing happened. He pressed it again, harder. The light didn't change, the locks didn't budge. A prickle of unease crept up his spine. He stole another glance in the mirror. The man was even closer now. No sound, no movement, but definitely closer. Malik's fingers twitched over the ignition. His gas gauge was still full. That was impossible. He'd been running on fumes when he picked the guy up. He exhaled sharply and rubbed at his temple. "You're just tired, that's all." He checked the mirror again. The passenger was right behind him now, a breath away from his seat. Malik slammed his foot on the brake. The car did not stop. The street outside stretched unnaturally long, like the road was being pulled forward. The streetlights flickered wildly, casting warped shadows over the pavement. The passenger whispered something, a low crawling sound that made Malik's skin prickle. He turned his head, mouth dry. "What?" The whispering grew louder, not words, not exactly, just a static-like hum, thick and wet, overlapping into itself like dozens of voices speaking at once. Malik jerked the wheel. The street outside twisted, buildings blurring, traffic lights flickering into static shapes that weren't lights anymore. His ears popped. The air felt thick and heavy, pressing against his chest. The whispering stopped. His car jolted to a stop. Malik sat frozen, his breath ragged. Slowly, he turned. The back seat was empty. The door was still locked. The only proof that anyone had ever been there was the deep indentation in the leather, the shape of someone who had just been sitting there. His phone buzzed violently in his lap. His hands shook as he grabbed it. The rideshare app had reopened. A notification blinked at the top of the screen. Trip complete. Passenger departed. His stomach churned. He pressed the notification. The map loaded. The entire ride was listed as 0 miles. No route, no drop-off location. Just an empty, static-filled void where the trip history should have been. The air inside the car was suffocating now, thick with something unseen. Something that had weight. Malik reached for the ignition, his fingers shaking. He didn't want to drive home, didn't want to drive anywhere, because somehow he had the sick, sinking feeling. The ride wasn't really over. Not yet. Not ever. The end. Jade leaned against the marble kitchen counter, running her fingers over the sleek, cold surface. The silence in her new luxury apartment was absolute. It was why she'd chosen this place. Soundproof walls, no street noise, no paper-thin walls, no neighbors arguing at all hours. The leasing agent had bragged you could scream at the top of your lungs and no one would hear you. That had made her uneasy at the time, but now, standing in her pristine high-rise sanctuary, she welcomed the isolation. That night, after unpacking the last of her boxes, she fell into bed, exhausted. and then she heard it. Tap, tap, tap. Jade's eyes fluttered open. The sound was faint, rhythmic, deliberate. She sat up, heart pounding. The noise was coming from the air vent above the bedroom door. Jade held her breath, listening. Nothing. She exhaled, forcing a small laugh. You're just on edge. First night jitters. Still, she kept the hallway light on before falling back asleep. The next night, the tapping returned. Only this time, it wasn't alone. Jade lay still, gripping the sheets as a low whisper coiled through the darkness. It wasn't quite words, more like the shape of them. A mouth-forming speech just beyond comprehension. She sat up slowly. Her hands felt clammy. Swallowing hard, she grabbed her phone and hit record, holding it toward the vent. The whispering stopped immediately. She played the recording back. Silence. No taps. No whispering. Just the empty hum of her apartment. Jade licked her lips, unease slithering down her spine. Was she imagining things? She forced herself to breathe. Maybe the building had some kind of ventilation issue. It's nothing, just your nerves. But the next morning, as she opened the door to leave for work, a small white note slid into her apartment. She stared at it for a long moment before reaching down. They watched through the mirrors. A chill spread through her bones. Jade yanked the door open, stepping into the hall, scanning for anyone who might have left it. Nothing. The hall was empty. She closed the door. It's a prank. Some idiot trying to mess with me. Still, the note stayed in the back of her mind all day. That evening, she tried to put it behind her. She set up candles, made tea, scrolled through her phone, and then her fingers froze mid-scroll. Every single photo of herself had changed. They were all the same as before. Except now, there was a figure standing just behind her, tall, shadowed, watching. Jade's heart hammered. She flipped through dozens of pictures, every one of them altered. Her breath hitched. With shaking hands, she hit delete. Each one vanished, but when she exited the gallery and reopened it, they were all back. She let out a small choked breath. Panic surged through her. She opened her call log and dialed 911. The call did not go through. She tried again. Nothing. She switched to her contacts. The list was empty. Even her own phone number was gone. Jade's chest tightened. Her hands trembled as she ran to the bathroom and flicked on the light. The mirror reflected her wide-eyed face. Alone. Still, she felt it. A presence behind her. Watching. Her mind screamed at her not to turn around. She snatched a towel from the rack and covered the mirror. Then the bedroom mirror. Then the hallway. Only after every reflective surface was concealed did she allow herself to breathe. Then her phone vibrated. A text message. From a number with no name. Don't cover them. Jade nearly dropped the phone. A choked whimper escaped her lips. Her stomach twisted, nausea rising in her throat. I'm losing it. I have to get out of here. She turned toward the front door, and then her floor-to-ceiling window caught her eye. Her reflection was still staring at her. Even though she had already turned away, her knees buckled. It smiled. Jade let out a strangled gasp and stumbled backward. No, she whispered. The reflection moved forward, but Jade didn't. It stepped toward the glass, placing a hand against it. Jade's breath came in short, shallow bursts. She grabbed the closest thing, a lamp, and hurled it at the window. The glass didn't shatter. The lamp passed through the reflection, clattering harmlessly to the floor. A distorted voice crawled from the window. Not yet. Jade screamed. Her phone buzzed again. The leasing office. She snatched it up, nearly sobbing. Hello, she gasped. A pause. Then a man's voice. Who is this? Jade clenched her jaw. Jade, from 1608. Something is wrong with this apartment. Someone's been inside. Someone is. Silence. Then the manager's calm voice. Ma'am, there is no tenant in 1608. Jade's blood turned to ice. What? There's no one renting that unit. It's been empty since the last tenant went missing. Jade couldn't breathe. This is a mistake, she whispered. I live here. I'm sorry, ma'am, the voice said. That's not possible. Jade's fingers went numb. She turned to the window. Her reflection was still watching her, even though she wasn't facing it anymore. Her phone buzzed. Another message, a video file. With shaking hands, she clicked it. A live feed from inside her apartment. It was filming her from behind. Her mouth opened to scream. The screen flickered, and then the reflection whispered, "You belong to us now." And the lights went out. The end. Jackson was the one who found the trapdoor. He had yanked up an old, warped floorboard in their bedroom, and there it was, a heavy steel latch, flush against the wood. Elise stared at it, a splintered breath catching in her throat. Jesus, Jackson murmured, running a hand over the worn metal. How did we not see this before? The house had been in Jackson's family for generations, sitting vacant for over a decade. They'd moved in 3 weeks ago, eager to make it their own. The place was a mess, leaky pipes, sagging beams. But this wasn't in the blueprint. He pulled. The latch groaned. The trapdoor lifted. The staircase led down into darkness. The air that rose up was damp and stale, tinged with mildew and something faintly rotten. Elise shivered, suddenly aware of how silent the house had become. We should, she started, but Jackson was already stepping down. The room beneath was small, windowless, the walls lined with crumbling bricks. A few child-sized mattresses were scattered across the floor, their stuffing spilling like burst organs. The walls were covered in crude drawings scratched into the stone, stick figures with hollow eyes, jagged mouths. A reel-to-reel tape recorder sat in the middle of the floor, dust-covered but intact. Jackson crouched, twisting the knob. The machine whirred to life, static crackling from its speaker. Then, a voice. A child's whisper. They're still in here. Elise flinched. The house let out a groan above them. A door slammed hard. Jackson grabbed her hand, dragging her up the stairs. They burst into the bedroom, panting, and the trapdoor was gone. No hole in the floor, no staircase, no room beneath. Elise turned to Jackson, her breath coming fast. He stood frozen, staring at the floor, knuckles white. It was here, he whispered. It was real. That night, Elise woke in the dark. Jackson was sitting at the edge of the bed, facing the floor, whispering to himself. Her stomach turned to ice. Jackson, he didn't answer. She reached out, but before she could touch him, he murmured, "We should let them out." A slow, distant knock sounded beneath the floorboards. Elise shot up, gripping his arm. "Stop it." Jackson blinked at her as if seeing her for the first time. His face was pale, damp with sweat. The knocking stopped. Without a word, he slid under the covers and turned away. Within minutes, his breathing was slow and steady. Asleep. Elise, however, did not sleep. Jackson wouldn't talk about what happened. When Elise brought it up over breakfast, he only shook his head. "I must have been dreaming," he muttered, rubbing his temples. But Elise knew better. The floorboards felt different beneath her feet, as if something had shifted, something had stretched beneath them. She told herself it was just stress, just the house settling, until she found the tape recorder. It was in the closet. sitting on the floor between their neatly stacked moving boxes. She knew they had left it down there. Elise stared at it, her pulse hammering. She shouldn't, but she did. She pressed play. At first it was just static. Then the whisper came again, the child's voice soft and hollow. They never left. A second voice hidden under the first, a rasping breath, a slow dragging syllable. Jackson. The voice said his name. Elise dropped the recorder. It clattered against the hardwood, the speaker hissing with white noise. Then above her, the floor creaked. She turned, staring up at the bedroom ceiling. Jackson was up there, but he wasn't alone. She locked the bedroom door. Jackson didn't argue. He barely spoke, barely acknowledged her. Just sat there, staring at the floor, fingers twitching like a man listening to something only he could hear. Elise sat in bed, watching him. The room felt wrong, like the walls had shifted an inch in the night. Around 2 a.m., she woke to the sound of creaking wood. Jackson was standing in the dark. The floorboards flexed beneath his feet as he rocked back and forth, muttering. Elise's voice came out hoarse. Jackson. He didn't move. She climbed out of bed, stepping cautiously toward him. His lips were moving, forming silent words. His gaze was locked on the floor. She listened, and then a knock from below. Elise screamed. Jackson snapped out of his trance, blinking rapidly. The knocking stopped. Elise grabbed his shoulders. We need to leave. Now. Jackson shook his head. No, he murmured, voice distant. Not yet. Not yet. She called a motel. Said they were having plumbing issues. Would be back in a few days. Jackson didn't argue. He seemed hollowed out, like something inside him had gone quiet. They packed. Elise felt the tension drain from her chest when they finally stepped outside, locking the door behind them. They drove in silence, heading toward town. Elise gripped the wheel, forcing herself to breathe. Then, from the back seat, a whisper. You should have let us out. The car engine died. The radio fizzed with static. The streetlights flickered, their glow vanishing one by one. Elise twisted the key. Nothing. Jackson sat stiffly, staring straight ahead. The air grew heavy. Then in the rearview mirror, Elise saw it. A trapdoor, right in the middle of the back seat. A metal latch, just beginning to lift. The end. Andrew never believed in small-town superstitions. If something knocks twice after midnight, the old folks would say, you do not open the door, you do not answer, you do not acknowledge it. It was a quaint little ghost story, nothing more. The kind of thing whispered over campfires, passed down like bad recipes. Andrew always laughed it off, until the night it knocked. It was 1:15 midnight when he heard it. A single, sharp knock. Then, a second. Andrew froze mid-sip of his beer, the sound cutting through the quiet hum of his apartment. His mind flicked immediately to the stories, the warnings, the stern voices of the town elders. Don't open the door. A smirk pulled at his lips. He stood, stretched, and walked lazily to the door. His fingers curled around the doorknob. He hesitated, just for a second. Then, with a flourish, he swung it wide. Nothing, just the empty night, the wind brushing through the trees. His porch light flickered, but that was normal. Andrew chuckled, shaking his head. Idiots, he muttered, shutting the door. Then, knock, knock, from inside the house. Andrew turned sharply, heart thudding against his ribs. His apartment was small, 1 bedroom, 1 hallway, nowhere to hide, and yet the knock had come from the darkened hallway. A prank, a draft, a leftover echo of his imagination. He forced a breath, rubbing the back of his neck. "All right, very funny," he called, stepping toward the hall. Silence. He flicked on the hallway light. Empty. Andrew let out a shaky laugh and ran a hand down his face. "Jesus, I need sleep." He shut the light off, went to bed, and convinced himself it was nothing. By morning, he had almost forgotten about it. Almost. His sister Claire noticed something was off the moment she stepped inside. Andrew greeted her with a smile that felt too wide, too practiced. "Morning, sis," he said, voice just a fraction too slow, as if his lips were catching up with the words. Claire frowned. "You, of course." His smile didn't fade. She tried to shake it off. Maybe he was tired. Maybe she was imagining things. But as they sat down for breakfast, something in her gut twisted. Andrew ate differently. Every movement was too methodical, each bite too precise, each chew too measured, as if he was consciously performing the act of eating. He barely blinked. Claire swallowed hard. "Did something happen last night?" Andrew's fork paused midair, then a grin. "What makes you ask that?" A chill ran down her spine. His smile hadn't dropped since she arrived. Claire forced a laugh. "No reason, just checking in." She stayed only an hour before making an excuse to leave. Her hands trembled the entire drive home. That night, Claire's phone buzzed. One new message. "You shouldn't have opened the door," and her throat closed. It was from Andrew's number. She read it again, then again. Hands shaking, she typed back, "What?" No response. Then, knock, knock. Claire nearly dropped her phone. Her apartment was small, just like Andrew's. The knock came from her front door. Her mind screamed, "Don't answer." She backed away, phone clutched tight, breath coming in short, sharp gasps. She typed quickly, "Andrew, what the hell is going on?" The three dots appeared, typing. Then the message vanished. Silence. A new message popped up instead. "Are you home?" Claire's stomach turned. "Of course I am. What kind of question is that?" The typing dots returned. Another knock, this time from inside her apartment. Claire choked on a scream. She spun toward the sound, her hallway stretching dark and silent before her. Her fingers hovered over her phone. Call someone, call anyone. Then her phone buzzed again. A photo of herself, standing in the hallway. Her breath hitched. She turned back to the hallway, but it was empty. The picture came with a message. "Let me in." Claire's body went cold. She staggered back, shaking her head, bile rising in her throat. "No, no, no, no." She ran for the door, fumbled with the lock. But before she could escape, a voice, low, too slow, too wrong, whispered behind her, "You shouldn't have opened the door." Darkness swallowed her whole. The next day, Andrew arrived at Claire's apartment. He knocked twice. She answered. Her smile was too wide. "Morning, big brother," she said, voice just a fraction too slow. Andrew grinned back. And that night, somewhere in town, something knocked again. The end. Victor Greaves signed the contract without reading most of it. He didn't have the luxury to be picky. His rent was overdue, his credit card bills were suffocating him, and his fridge contained nothing but expired condiments. So when Orbis Industries emailed him with an offer, no interview, no experience required, high salary, he ignored the absurd confidentiality clause and signed. On his first day, a receptionist handed him a navy blue ID badge. Victor Greaves, Junior Operations Analyst. When he flipped it over, he frowned. March 18th, 3 weeks from today. He tapped the badge. "What's the state for?" The receptionist's smile was tight. "Memorize it." Never misplace your badge. Her tone was final, rehearsed, like she had said it too many times before. Victor entered the main office. Rows of gray cubicles, dull fluorescence, walls stripped of personality. No nameplates, no family photos. Just employees sitting stiffly at their desks, typing away at blank screens. He hesitated before settling into his own station, an unmarked desk with a monitor and keyboard. No login credentials, no welcome email, no instructions. Then his screen flashed, a single notification. Task: rearrange file cabinets by height. He frowned. That was odd, but maybe it was some weird initiation task. He did it. An hour later, a new task arrived. Erase all whiteboards. Then format blank documents. Victor stared at the screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard. This wasn't normal. He glanced at his coworkers. No one spoke. No one looked up. They all typed on empty screens. At lunch, he tried making conversation. "Hey, I'm new. What exactly do we?" The man across from him stood abruptly and walked away. Victor blinked. Others did the same, abandoning their half-eaten meals. No talking, no eye contact. That night, curiosity got the better of him. He lingered near the main exit, pretending to tie his shoe. At 6 sharp, everyone left in eerie unison. But when he checked the security footage near the entrance, his stomach dropped. The doors never opened. The hallway remained empty. Victor rewound the footage. Again and again, no one left. The next morning, his ID badge was waiting at his desk. He swore he left it at home. By his second week, he started noticing things. A delay in his reflection's movements. A shadow at his desk when he wasn't there. A figure in the break room that disappeared when he turned around. His hands shook as he flipped his ID. March 18th. The date hadn't changed. Victor began checking his coworkers' badges when they weren't looking. Every single one had an expiration date. None were further than 3 weeks out. His chest tightened. What happens when the date arrives? On March 16th, Victor stopped sleeping. His own voice whispered from empty rooms. His monitor flickered when he wasn't using it. At 11:42 p.m., his badge vibrated. A single notification. Time remaining 48 hours. Victor's breath hitched. He needed answers. That night, while security patrolled upstairs, he stole a key card from the reception desk, and he descended into the basement. The stairwell was damp, the air thick with something stale. The lower level was identical to the main office, same cubicles, same humming fluorescence. But these desks weren't empty. Rows of employees sat, hands resting on keyboards, screens glowing softly. Victor approached cautiously. None of them moved. None blinked. His stomach twisted as he looked at their ID badges. He reached out and flipped one over. Victor Greaves. His throat tightened. He checked another. Victor Greaves. Another. Victor Greaves. He stumbled backward, pulse hammering. Then from above, the lights flickered. A voice, his own voice, breathed against his ear. "Time's up." The security footage for March 18th was blank, just like all the others. The end. Daniel had stopped believing in good luck a long time ago. When the eviction notice landed on his door, he knew the universe wasn't going to throw him a lifeline. But somehow, 2 days later, he stood inside a perfectly cheap studio apartment. Too cheap. The landlord, a wiry man with a permanent shrug, didn't meet his eyes when Daniel asked why the rent was so low. "People leave all the time," he said. "Why'd the last guy leave?" Didn't say. The answer sat wrong with Daniel, like a swallowed piece of glass, because the last guy had left in a hurry. Everything remained: an unmade bed, a toothbrush and a cup, a plate of half-eaten spaghetti stiff with age on the counter. The TV was on when Daniel arrived, tuned to static, a whispering snowfall of gray and black. He turned it off. The silence felt wrong. His phone buzzed. A message from the landlord: "Let me know if you need anything." Daniel reread the text before setting the phone down. He felt like he'd already seen those words before. Daniel woke up to a note on the fridge: "Don't let them move you." It was in his handwriting. His stomach twisted. He snatched the paper, turned it over. Blank. No memory of writing it. What the hell? A buzzing in his head. A headache forming. He went to grab his phone to check the time. The lock screen showed 3 outgoing calls from last night, to unknown numbers. His pulse sped up. He scrolled down. All 3 calls had been answered. He sat down on the bed, gripping his temples. Had he made those calls in his sleep? A pit settled in his stomach. Something was wrong with this place. Daniel woke to a new lock on his door. His key didn't fit. At first, he thought he was just groggy, his hands fumbling. But no, the key wouldn't slide in. He tried again, jiggled the handle, then he pounded. Hey, what the hell? Silence. He texted the landlord. No response. Frustration made his skin hot. He stormed to the window, yanking up the blinds, and froze. Someone was standing on the sidewalk, staring up at him. Daniel's breath hitched. His pulse thudded in his ears. The man looked exactly like him. Same messy brown hair, same navy jacket, same tired, confused expression. Daniel took a step back from the window. The man outside didn't move. It wasn't a reflection. A second later, his phone rang. The caller ID flashed. Unknown number. He answered, throat tight, static, a whispering sound. Then, "Daniel, don't go anywhere." He dropped the phone. Sleep didn't come. At 3:12 a.m., Daniel's phone buzzed again. Voicemail. Shaking, he hit play. It was his own voice. "They're going to move you. Don't let them. Don't let them erase you." His breath came shallow. Had he recorded this? He grabbed his shoes, his jacket. He had to leave. Right now. The front door still wouldn't open. He tried kicking it. Nothing. A creeping horror settled in his chest. He couldn't get out. Daniel woke up on the bare floor. His bed was gone. Not just the bed. Everything. His clothes, his phone charger, his shoes, the framed photo of his mother, his furniture. The apartment was as it had been when he first moved in, except for one thing. The note on the fridge. The words had changed. "They're coming today." A knock at the door. Daniel rushed over, gripping the handle. "Who's there?" A voice. Calm. Routine. "Moving service. Here for the pickup." Daniel's stomach turned to ice. The movers took what was left. Daniel stood frozen, his last possessions vanishing piece by piece. No one looked at him. The landlord walked in, nodding to himself. Then he turned to the door and called out, "New guys here." Daniel's breath caught in his throat. A man stepped in. Daniel knew him immediately. Same lost look, same stiff movements of someone who didn't understand yet that he had already moved in long ago. The new tenant frowned. "Left. But there's still stuff here." The landlord shrugged. "People leave all the time." Daniel turned to the window. Outside, in the growing dark, a reflection stood on the sidewalk. Not the new tenant's reflection. His own. Watching. Waiting. The cycle had begun again. The end. Jamie adjusted the strap of her backpack as she stepped onto the porch of the old Victorian house. It was one of those homes that seemed too big for the small family living in it. A single mother and her quiet 8-year-old daughter Thank you again for watching Lily last minute. She's already eaten. Bedtime is at 9. She might ask you to play her little game before then, but it's nothing to worry about. Jamie raised an eyebrow. What kind of game? The woman hesitated. Oh, just hiding, whispering. I think it's a phase. Jamie wasn't sure she liked the sound of that, but before she could ask more, Lily's mother was already slipping out the door. A soft voice came from the staircase. Wanna play? Jamie turned to see Lily standing at the bottom of the stairs, barefoot in her nightgown, watching her with dark, expectant eyes. Jamie smiled, setting her backpack on the couch. What's the game? Lily giggled and darted down the hall, vanishing into the shadows. Jamie sighed and followed, peeking into different rooms. The house was eerily quiet, the only sound her own footsteps against the old wooden floors. She found Lily crouched inside the downstairs closet, her tiny frame pressed deep into the darkness. Her lips moved slightly, almost as if she were whispering to someone. A chill ran up Jamie's spine. Who are you talking to? She asked. Lily turned her head just enough for Jamie to see her smile. It's not a game. It's practice. Jamie frowned. Practice for what? Lily didn't answer. She only tilted her head, smiling in that same knowing way. Jamie shuddered. All right, enough hiding for now. Bedtime's in 10 minutes. Lily didn't protest. She just stepped out of the closet and walked upstairs without a word. After some coaxing, Jamie got Lily into bed, pulling the blankets up to her chin. The soft glow of the nightlight cast strange shadows on the walls. Jamie lingered in the doorway. Hey, Lily. The child blinked up at her. You never answered my question. What were you practicing for? Lily hesitated. Then in a small voice she whispered, They only come if you're bad at hiding. Jamie felt her stomach tighten. Who comes? Lily didn't answer. She only turned over, pulling the blanket up over her head. Jamie lay on the couch, scrolling through her phone, but something about the silence in the house gnawed at her. The hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the clock, the usual sounds of a house at night, none of them were there. Then, a creak. Jamie's heart skipped. She sat up slowly, eyes adjusting to the dark. The hallway stretched in front of her, leading to the staircase, where one of the bedroom doors now hung open. Lily's room. Jamie swallowed. Maybe she had just kicked it open in her sleep. But then something else caught her eye. A shape at the end of the hallway. A figure standing in the dimness, motionless. Jamie's breath hitched. Lily. The figure took a single step forward. Jamie felt ice flood her veins. She bolted into the downstairs bathroom, slamming the door shut and locking it. Her breath came in shallow, uneven gasps. Then, soft footsteps, moving toward her. Something brushed against the bathroom door. A whisper. Not Lily's, Jamie's. Her pulse pounded as she pressed her eye to the keyhole. The hallway was empty. Then she saw it, herself, standing just outside the bathroom door. Her own face, her own wide, terrified eyes staring back at her. A sharp ringing filled Jamie's ears as her mind struggled to make sense of it. The lights flickered, shadows dancing wildly across the walls. A soft giggle drifted through the air. Jamie turned her head sharply toward the hallway. Lily stood in the shadows. She whispered, voice sing-song and lilting, You lost. The bathroom door clicked open, and Jamie screamed. The end. The numbers hadn't been there when Alex left for coffee, but as he slid into his chair, still shaking off the morning grogginess, they were waiting for him. 8739201334. A seemingly random string of digits in the corner of his screen. No label, no flashing cursor, just sitting there like it had always belonged. Alex frowned and moved his mouse. No response. He clicked around. It wasn't a notification, a widget, or an error message. "Hey, Mark," he called over the cubicle wall. His coworker barely looked up. "Yeah, do you see this?" Alex gestured at his screen. Mark leaned over, briefly squinted, then shrugged. "Just a glitch. That's what I thought, but it wasn't there before." Mark was already typing again. "It'll fix it." Alex hesitated, then returned to his work. Maybe it was just a system error. Then at 9:47 a.m. sharp, the numbers changed. A new string appeared, 419832704. His stomach twisted. The same thing happened the next day. Different numbers, no explanation. No one else seemed to notice. By the third morning, Alex started writing them down. After a week, he decided to report it. He filed a ticket with IT, but a few hours later, his request vanished from his inbox. No confirmation, no record it had ever been submitted. A cold, nagging unease settled in his chest. That afternoon, out of sheer paranoia, Alex checked the numbers against breaking news stories. The sequence from that morning, 2341738, matched the flight number of a commercial airline disaster. His pulse thundered in his ears. A coincidence? Had to be. But the next day, the numbers matched the stock market collapse. The next, a train derailment, and then, the following morning, the numbers weren't a stock price or a flight. They were an employee ID. That afternoon, an email arrived from HR. "We regret to inform you that Chris Elderman passed away unexpectedly this morning." Alex's hands went numb. The numbers weren't random. They were predictions. He stopped sleeping. Each morning at 9:47 a.m., his screen flickered and spat out another number, another omen of something inevitable. His world started revolving around them. He refreshed news feeds obsessively, cross-referencing the numbers before the disasters happened, but no one listened when he tried to warn them. His coworkers still didn't see the digits on his screen. IT ignored his tickets. Even when he took screenshots, the files came back corrupted, like the numbers had never been there at all. One night, driven by exhaustion and paranoia, Alex cornered his manager, Lisa, in the break room. "There's something wrong with the system," he whispered, eyes bloodshot. Lisa sighed. "What now?" "I've been getting these numbers every morning. At 9:47 a.m., they're predicting things, disasters, deaths, and no one else seems to notice." Lisa's face didn't register confusion. She just stared at him. Something shifted in the air. The usual dismissive irritation was gone, replaced with something colder. Then she spoke, her voice low, firm. "Stop asking about it." Alex felt his stomach plummet. "What?" Lisa turned and walked away. By the time he sat down at his desk the next morning, Alex already knew the numbers would be waiting for him. His hands trembled as he opened his notebook. He tried to steady his breath. 9:46 a.m. His pulse drummed against his ribs. 47 a.m. The screen refreshed. The number staring back at him wasn't a stock market code. It wasn't a flight. It wasn't an employee ID. It was his home address. Alex's vision swam. His body went rigid. This wasn't like the others. This wasn't a warning about someone else. This time, it was him. He swallowed hard. Maybe it's a mistake. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. But the numbers were never mistakes. He grabbed his coat and left. Outside, his breath hitched in the cold air. He stood across the street from his apartment, staring at the building like it might vanish if he blinked. 9:45 a.m. His fingers curled into fists. Maybe if he just stayed put, it wouldn't happen. His heart hammered in his chest. A.M. A car came flying down the street. Too fast, way too fast. The driver lost control. The tires screeched. The car swerved right onto the sidewalk, right where Alex would have been standing. Glass shattered. The hood crumpled against the street pole. A sickening silence followed. Alex's knees nearly buckled. His skin prickled with an awful, creeping realization. He had survived, but had he actually escaped? That night, he sat in front of his monitor, staring at the empty screen. His chest felt hollow. His hands trembled, still processing what had happened. The numbers had never lied before, but this time they had let him see it coming. His mind raced. Were they a warning? A test? The screen flickered. Alex's breath hitched. Another number appeared, but this time it wasn't a flight or a stock or an address. It was a name, not his, someone else's. His stomach churned. He stared at the screen, at the inescapable truth staring back at him. Tomorrow at 9:47 a.m., someone would die. And this time, Alex had to decide, would he try to stop it or let it happen? The end. Maria first noticed it while washing dishes. The sky outside had gone that deep suburban blue, streetlights flickering to life as the houses across the road locked up for the night. Daniel was upstairs putting Ethan to bed, and the quiet hum of the dishwasher filled the space around her. She turned her head toward the window above the sink, half expecting to see Daniel's reflection behind her. But instead, she saw herself. Only, not quite. The Maria in the window moved a fraction too late. It wasn't much, just half a second, barely noticeable. The kind of thing you could blame on tired eyes or an old house with old glass. But as Maria scrubbed the last of the plates, her stomach twisted. When she turned her head away, she caught movement from the corner of her eye. Her reflection lingered just a moment too long before catching up. Maria let out a small, breathless laugh. God, I need more sleep. That night, she pulled the bathroom mirror off the wall and stuffed it into the closet. She told herself not to look in windows anymore, but it was impossible. Reflections were everywhere. On the oven, in the darkened TV screen, the sliding glass door leading to the backyard. They followed her. And then one morning, the mirror was back. She stood frozen in the doorway of the bathroom, her toothbrush slack in her hand. The mirror, which she knew she had hidden, hung in its usual place above the sink, spotless, waiting. A breath left her lips, shaky and uncertain. Daniel, she called. Yeah. His voice came from the hallway, muffled like he was still half asleep. Did you put the mirror back? A pause. Then what? The bathroom mirror. She turned, the feeling of something crawling under her skin, making her voice tight. I took it down last night, but it's... She stopped. Daniel stood in the doorway, his brow furrowed, hair messy from sleep. But behind him, just over his shoulder, the other Maria was already watching her from the mirror. She wasn't frowning. She wasn't confused. She was smiling. Maria let out a strangled gasp and turned the mirror face down against the sink. Daniel rubbed his jaw. Babe, are you okay? No, she wasn't. The next night, Maria woke up to the sound of tapping. She blinked, throat dry, and turned toward the noise. The room was dark, save for the street lamp glow leaking through the curtains. Daniel lay beside her, deep in sleep, the rise and fall of his breathing steady. The tapping came again. Maria sat up. It was coming from the window. She swallowed hard and slid out of bed, heart thudding as she crossed the room. With shaking fingers, she reached for the curtain. and froze. Outside in the dim porch light, someone was standing in their backyard. No, not someone. Her. Maria. She knew it instantly, even though the thing in the yard was standing too still, its face shadowed. The breath in her throat turned to ice. The figure raised a pale, slender hand and waved. Maria slammed the curtain shut. At breakfast, she barely touched her food. Ethan chattered about school, and Daniel scrolled through his phone, but Maria sat stiff and quiet, hands trembling in her lap. When Ethan went to grab his backpack, Maria finally spoke. "I saw it." Daniel glanced up. "Saw what?" Maria swallowed, her mouth dry. "My reflection, it was outside last night." Daniel sighed, setting his phone down. "Babe, I'm serious." She could feel her pulse in her throat, fast and frantic. It's not just the mirrors anymore. It's in the house, in the windows, in the glass. It's watching me. Daniel rubbed his face, exhaustion pinching the corners of his eyes. "Maria, please, you're scaring yourself." Maria gritted her teeth. "You don't believe me." "It's not that," he said. "You're just tired. You haven't been sleeping, and I know what I saw." Daniel shook his head. "Mirrors don't just..." "Mama." Ethan's small voice made Maria stop. She turned to see him standing in the kitchen doorway, eyes wide. "You were outside last night." The breath left Maria's body. The entire room tilted. Daniel turned to him, frowning. "What?" Ethan shifted his weight, looking between them nervously. "I saw you, Mama. You were standing outside my window." Maria's stomach flipped. Daniel's face darkened. "Ethan, that's not funny." "I'm not joking," the boy said, voice small. "You waved at me." Maria's chair scraped against the floor as she stood. She bolted up the stairs, Daniel's voice calling after her, but she didn't stop until she reached Ethan's bedroom window. She tore open the curtains. In the backyard, a single set of footprints in the morning frost led from the window to the trees. That night, Daniel woke to the feeling of something watching him. His body tensed before he even opened his eyes. The room was still and silent, the air thick. Maria's breathing beside him was slow, rhythmic, but something felt off. Something was wrong. And then he saw her, Maria, standing at the foot of the bed, his stomach clenched, his breath caught in his throat. She stood in the dark, unmoving, barely visible in the dim light from the hallway. Her head was tilted slightly, like she was listening. The blankets rustled as he slowly sat up. "Maria," he whispered. She didn't answer. Then a whisper slithered through the dark. "I'm tired of watching." Daniel's blood turned to ice. "It's my turn." His breath came shallow and fast. He reached over, heart hammering. Maria was still in bed, sleeping, but the thing at the foot of the bed hadn't moved. His hand shook violently as he reached for Maria's shoulder. She woke with a sharp inhale. "What?" Daniel yanked her up. "Maria," his voice broke. "Get up." What is it?" Maria turned and saw herself. The reflection tilted its head at her, slow and deliberate. Then it smiled. By morning, Daniel was gone. The house was silent. Ethan's room was empty. The bed was cold. A note sat on the kitchen counter. "You're not Maria." Maria's hands shook. She let out a strangled sob, grabbing the note, crushing it in her fist. She turned toward the hallway mirror, eyes wide and pleading. Her reflection stared back at her. Then slowly it stretched, rolling its shoulders, yawning like it had just woken from a long, deep sleep. Maria's breath hitched. She tried to speak, but the mouth in the mirror didn't move. It only smiled. The end. The hospital was quiet, too quiet. It was nearly midnight, and Evelyn had just finished her last rounds. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly, a rhythmic hum above the low beeps of monitors. She exhaled, rubbing the exhaustion from her temples. One more errand, dropping off a lab report on the 9th floor. Then she could go home. She pressed the elevator button and leaned against the cool metal wall when the doors slid open. As she rode up, the exhaustion weighed heavy on her eyelids. The elevator dinged. 13, Evelyn blinked. There was no 13th floor. Before she could react, the doors slid open with a soft chime. The hallway stretched in both directions, dimly lit, sterile white tiles gleaming under flickering fluorescent lights. Rows of empty hospital beds lined the walls, neatly made with crisp white sheets. A nauseatingly strong antiseptic smell clung to the air, sharp and artificial. A chill ran through her. This isn't right. She pressed the closed door button frantically, but nothing happened. The panel blinked, unresponsive. The buttons weren't even lit. A voice crackled through the overhead intercom. Code blue. Patient escaped. The static hissed, swallowing the rest of the message. A sharp click echoed down the hall. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. Evelyn's breath hitched. She stepped out, scanning for an exit. There were no signs, no numbers on the rooms, just an endless stretch of white walls and empty beds. The footsteps grew louder. She ducked under the nearest bed, pressing a hand over her mouth to silence her breathing. A figure moved past, tall, thin, dressed in a hospital gown. Their bare feet dragged against the floor, something heavy scraping behind them. She clenched her teeth, willing herself not to shake. The figure stopped, a long, dreadful silence. Then, a voice. "I know you're here." Evelyn bit down on her knuckle, tasting blood. The figure lurched forward, the scraping noise growing louder. A wet, rhythmic sound. She squeezed her eyes shut, heart hammering against her ribs. Then, silence. She waited. 1 second. 2, 10. When she finally dared to peek out, the hallway was empty. She slid from under the bed, crawling on her hands and knees until she reached the far end of the hall. Her eyes darted desperately. Stairs. A green exit sign glowed faintly ahead. She ran. The intercom crackled again. "Do not let her leave." Something screamed behind her. A burst of cold air rushed against her back as she slammed into the stairwell door, pushing it open. The stairs spiraled downward into darkness, deeper than they should have. The walls felt too close. She could still hear it, the footsteps above, growing faster. She ran. The stairs seemed endless, stretching beyond reason. Her legs burned, lungs screamed for air. But she didn't stop, not until she crashed through another door, onto the hospital's ground floor. She stumbled into the brightly lit lobby. The familiar world of late-night nurses and soft beeping machines surrounded her. Everything was normal. Evelyn turned, panting, expecting to see the stairwell door behind her. There was nothing, just a blank wall. A hand gripped her shoulder. She jumped. "Jesus, Evelyn, are you okay?" It was Marco, the security guard, his brow furrowed at her wild-eyed expression. I was on the 13th floor," she stammered. "There was a patient. He was looking for me." Marco's frown deepened. "What are you talking about? There is no 13th floor." Her skin turned ice cold. "I took the elevator. It stopped on..." Marco exhaled, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Come on, let's check the cameras." They walked to the security office, the low hum of fluorescent lights making her stomach churn. Marco pulled up the footage, fast-forwarding through the last half hour. Evelyn leaned in, the screen flickered. She saw herself in the elevator, alone. The doors opened to nothing, just darkness. She stepped forward hesitantly, peering into the void. Suddenly, the screen glitched. For a brief second, a frame flashed. Evelyn standing in a white hallway staring straight at the camera. Then, static. Margot went rigid beside her. "That's not possible," he muttered. Evelyn could barely hear him over the rushing pulse in her ears. On the monitor, the timestamp froze at 12:13 a.m. The intercom in the security office crackled to life. Code blue. Patient escaped. The screen blinked, and in the distorted static, something stared back. The end. Jake pulled into his driveway, exhaustion weighing on him. Another late night at work. He stepped out, rolling his shoulders as he fumbled for his keys. Then he saw it. The front door was unlocked. His stomach tightened. Had Claire forgotten to lock it? No, she was meticulous about these things. He hesitated before stepping inside. The house smelled the same. Roasted chicken, Claire's lavender candles, but something was off. The couch sat an inch to the left. The rug, slightly darker. The family photos, his wife's warm smile. Their home behind her, the two children. Jake froze. The kids in the photos were strangers. His breath hitched. He staggered forward, checking each frame. The house, the woman, everything else remained the same. But the children, they weren't his. A sound, soft footsteps from the hallway. A man stepped out of the bedroom. Jake's world pitched sideways. The man was him. Same face, same dark eyes, same work-wrinkled shirt. He smiled easily as if they'd met before. "Oh, you're home early," the man said. Jake's blood ran cold. Behind him, the kitchen door creaked. Claire entered, drying her hands on a dish towel. She looked at the imposter, then at Jake, and smiled. "Honey, who are you talking to?" she asked. Jake's pulse slammed against his ribs. "Claire." His voice came out hoarse. "It's me." Claire frowned slightly. "You're not making sense." She stepped toward the other Jake, resting a hand on his arm. "Are you okay?" Jake staggered backward. Who is that?" His wife's expression darkened. "Jake. I am Jake." The words hung in the air. Claire's face was unreadable, but there was something else behind her eyes now. Pity. He turned and bolted. Outside, the street stretched in both directions, familiar yet wrong. The houses loomed taller than before. The trees stood unnaturally still. Even the parked cars, his neighbor's red sedan was now silver. His own car was missing. Jake fumbled for his phone, fingers trembling. He dialed 911. A long, static-filled pause. Then, 911, what's your emergency? Jake's breath caught in his throat. The voice on the other end was his own. "Hello," Jake whispered. "Sir," his own voice responded, calm and professional. "Please return home. Your family is waiting." The line went dead. Jake stared at his phone, nausea rolling through him. A voice spoke behind him. "You should go back inside." He spun. It was his neighbor, Mr. Darnell, an older man, always friendly. But his face, something about it seemed stretched, too smooth, like an image slightly distorted. "Mr. Darnell," Jake panted. "You know me, right?" The old man blinked. "You mean the guy who lives at your address?" He scratched his chin. "Yeah, I know him." "No," Jake pressed. "Me." The old man just stared. Jake's blood ran colder. He sprinted back to the house. Through the window he saw them. His family, eating dinner. Claire laughed at something the doppelganger said. The kids, not his kids, giggled. His chair was taken. He yanked the door open. "Stop it." They all turned. The doppelganger smiled. Claire's expression darkened. "You need to leave." "This is my house," Jake shouted, pointing at the imposter. "That is not me." The doppelganger sighed and wiped his mouth with a napkin. "Jake," his voice was gentle. patient, you're confused. Jake grabbed a family photo from the wall, pointing at the picture. Look at this. These aren't our kids. Claire's expression didn't change. Honey, you're scaring me. Jake looked back at the photo, then dropped it. The glass shattered against the hardwood. The image had changed. The doppelganger was in the picture now. Claire, the wrong children. Jake gasped, stumbling backward. No, 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 no. He turned and ran to the bathroom, flicked on the light. The mirror reflected the room behind him, the door frame, the tiled wall. But not him. His breath came out in short, sharp gasps. He reached for the sink, gripped it hard. His reflection was gone. No, he was still here. He was real. He spun back toward the hallway. The doppelganger stood there. Why are you fighting it? The copy asked. His voice was soft. You were gone, so I took care of things. Jake backed against the sink. This isn't real. The house shifted. The walls stretched taller. The shadows deepened unnaturally. The air buzzed. The hum of a frequency too low to hear. The doppelganger stepped forward. You don't belong here. Jake tried to move, but his body wouldn't respond. His wife stepped beside the imposter. The wrong kids peeked from behind them. Their eyes were hollow. Jake gasped, Claire, but she just stared, unblinking. Then, all at once, the house spat him out. He hit the pavement hard. A sickening snapshot through his arm. His head spun. He looked back. The house had changed. Taller. Different windows. Different door. Like it had never been his. Jake stumbled down the street, cradling his arm. His breath came in ragged gasps. He had to find help. He turned a corner and there, his house. But inside, through the window, a different family. A different man sitting at his kitchen table. Jake's knees buckled. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. He caught his reflection in a car window. His face was gone. A phone rang in his pocket. Hands shaking, he answered. A voice spoke on the line. His own voice. Sir, please return home. Your family is waiting. Click. The streetlights flickered. Jake turned to look at the house, his old house, one last time. And then, the world swallowed him whole. The end. Lena woke up to the sound of her phone screaming. It wasn't her alarm or even a call, just an electronic voice droning through the speaker. Immediate evacuation in progress. Follow all instructions. Do not ask questions. She sat up, heart hammering. The glow of the screen cast her one-bedroom apartment in eerie blue. The time read 3:12 a.m. What the hell, she muttered, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Her first instinct was to check outside. Maybe a fire, a gas leak, something. But when she pulled the blinds aside, the street was empty. More than that, wrong. House doors hung open. A car sat in a driveway with its door ajar, the headlights still on. A bicycle lay on its side in the middle of the road, its wheels spinning slightly. There were no sirens, no distant honking of panicked drivers, no people. Her phone buzzed again. Evacuation zone active. Departure deadline expired. Lena's stomach twisted. She grabbed her keys, threw on her jacket, and ran outside. The highway should have been jammed with evacuees. Instead, it was barren. The green reflective signs that once read Route 16 East were blank, just featureless metal. The gas stations were open, their neon lights buzzing, but the pumps had been left unattended, hoses dangling. Lena slowed her car, gripping the wheel. She couldn't be the only one left. This had to be some kind of drill, right? Up ahead, red and blue lights pulsed in the darkness. A lone police officer stood at a roadblock, motionless. His face was pale in the flashing lights, eyes unfocused, almost as if he were listening to something she couldn't hear. She pulled up and rolled down her window. "Officer." Her voice cracked. "What's going on?" The man blinked once, his face unreadable. Then, without speaking, he reached into his vest and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He handed it to her through the window. Her hands shook as she unfolded it. "Turn around. You are not on the list." A shudder crawled up her spine. "What does that mean?" she asked, gripping the note. "Where is everyone?" The officer's expression flickered, like static on a screen. For a split second, his features blurred, his skin rippling, his mouth warping into something grotesquely wide. Then he snapped back into place. Lena's pulse roared in her ears. "Officer, please." Her phone vibrated. "Containment breach unsuccessful. Remaining residents terminated." She barely had time to process the words before the officer's hand moved. His gun. She slammed on the gas, the tires screeching as she sped away from the checkpoint. She didn't stop until she reached the city's western edge. She could see the skyline, the towers still illuminated, but something was off. No cars moved, no streetlights changed. The entire city was a frozen diorama. Lena gritted her teeth, trying to think. "You are not on the list." What list? Why was she left behind? She parked on the curb, breath heavy, gripping her phone. "Call someone. Call anyone." The dial tone droned in her ear. No answer. She tried Mom, Dad, her sister. Work, 911, no answer. Lena gripped the wheel and let out a ragged breath. Think. Something caught her eye. Movement in a shop window. A flicker of motion. She turned sharply. A reflection stared back at her from the glass. Not hers. It was a person. But not quite. Their skin was flat, like a photo that had been printed instead of lived. Their smile stretched too wide. Their pupils were too round, too black. Lena's blood turned to ice. The reflection lifted its hand and placed a single finger against its lips. "Shh!" She screamed. She didn't remember peeling away from the curb, only that suddenly she was driving fast, her foot pressing down harder than it ever had before. The city blurred past her, streaked with neon, but she barely saw it. Every window she passed was wrong. The reflections didn't match. Some were too fast, some were too slow, some weren't even people at all. Her phone vibrated. "Stop running." She hurled it into the passenger seat. "Fuck you." Ahead, something massive loomed in the distance. The highway ended, or rather, it simply faded into nothing. A blank horizon, like an unfinished sketch. She skidded to a stop. Slowly she stepped out of the car. The air hummed, electric. The world beyond the highway wasn't finished. Buildings stopped existing past a certain point, like a video game map that hadn't fully loaded. The sky above wasn't black or blue, but a flat, empty gray. Then, behind her, footsteps. Lena turned. The officer stood there, gun still drawn, but his mouth was gone. Smooth, featureless skin stretched where lips should have been. He raised the weapon. Her phone buzzed one last time. Final termination in progress. Lena let out a choked sob and turned back to the unfinished world ahead of her. No more roads, no more buildings, just blank space. She took a breath and ran into the void. Her phone lay on the pavement, screen flickering. A final message appeared. Subject 179. Expired. Remaining anomalies neutralized. The screen went dark. The city was silent once more. The end. Jack sighed as he stepped into the lobby of Ventral Systems. Another Monday. He barely registered, swiping his badge at the turnstile. muscle memory. The beep sounded. Access denied. He frowned. Swiped again. Come on, he muttered. He tried a third time, pushing at the glass barrier, but it didn't budge. Sir, Jack turned. The receptionist Claire stared at him with polite concern. Do you need help? Yeah, my badge isn't working, he said, holding it up with a tired chuckle. Guess IT finally gave up on me. Claire's brows knit together. I'm sorry. Who are you? Jack let out a half laugh. Claire, it's me, Jack. I work on the 3rd floor. Been here for 3 years. The way she looked at him, like she had never seen him before in her life, made his stomach knot. I'm sorry, but you don't work here. The security guards were already approaching. 10 minutes later, Jack was outside, staring up at the glass monolith of his office building, his breath fogging in the crisp air. No badge, no access, no job. He pulled out his phone, work email. The app refreshed and nothing. Not a single email. Not even a login error. Just blank. He called his boss. No answer. He tried anyone from his team. Every call went straight to voicemail until suddenly there was only one contact left in his list. Jack voicemail. His own name, a number he didn't recognize. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. Hands shaking, he pressed dial, a ringing sound. Then, his own voice, crackly and distant. Stop trying. You were never here. The call disconnected. Jack stumbled back, nearly dropping the phone. The streets swirled around him. No, this had to be a mistake. He raced home, except his apartment key didn't fit. Jack hammered on the door. A stranger answered, peering at him through the crack. Who the hell are you? The man demanded. Jack's throat went dry. I live here. This is my place. No, it's not. The man's face twisted with suspicion. I moved in 3 months ago. Jack staggered back down the hall, gripping his head. No, no. He ran down the stairs, out into the street. Everything, the deli on the corner of the coffee shop he stopped at every morning, felt subtly wrong. Like an uncanny valley version of reality. He pulled up his banking app. Account not found. His email accounts, non-existent. His driver's license. The picture was someone else. The world around him was erasing him. Jack wandered for hours. He stopped strangers, tried to call old friends, but no one picked up. No one recognized him. His past was dissolving like sugar in water. The last tether he had was Jack. Voicemail, and so he called it again. Stop trying. No, I'm not stopping. What is happening to me? He yelled into the receiver. A pause, a shift in static. Then his own voice replied, You were never meant to stay. The world swayed. What does that mean? You don't belong here anymore. They noticed you need to go. Silence. Jack looked around. The streetlights flickered. The sky had deepened into unnatural dusk. Though the sun had only just begun to set, the world was closing in. His phone vibrated in his hand. A text. Jack, come back before it's too late. He looked up. The office building loomed in the distance, its windows dark. Something in him knew if he didn't go back, he would disappear completely. Jack ran, back through the empty streets, past the people who had forgotten him, through the front doors which somehow were unlocked. The security guards were gone. Claire's desk was empty. He took the elevator up, hard hammering. The 3rd floor was abandoned. No desks, no computers, just rows of empty chairs in an office that had never been filled. His reflection in the glass flickered, as though he wasn't really there at all. Then his phone rang. Jack, voicemail. Hand trembling, he answered. Welcome back. The office blinked, and suddenly it was full. His desk, his things, the sounds of coworkers typing, talking, laughing. A normal Monday. Jack let out a shaky breath, sinking into his chair. Everything was back. He was back. And yet something felt wrong. His phone vibrated one last time. A message. Jack voicemail. Don't forget this time. Don't make them notice you again. Jack swallowed hard. Then hesitantly he picked up his work and pretended like nothing had ever happened. The end. Ethan gripped the subway pole as the train screeched to a sudden stop, plunging the carriage into near darkness. The overhead lights flickered, casting eerie, stuttering shadows on the passengers around him. A hushed silence followed, uneasy, expectant. Then the intercom crackled to life. Passengers, please use the emergency exit. The robotic voice was calm, mechanical, devoid of urgency. Ethan's gaze darted around. There was no emergency exit, just the same sealed doors, the same dimly lit space. No one moved. A woman in a business suit clutched her purse. A teenager yanked out his earbuds. An old man squinted at the overhead signs as if a hidden escape might suddenly appear. Passengers, please use the emergency exit. The repetition sent an anxious ripple through the carriage. Then, movement. A man near the front, sweating and shaking, pried his fingers into the seam of the subway doors and forced them open. The tunnel outside was an abyss, pitch black, swallowing the weak flicker of the emergency lights. Wait, Ethan started, but the man had already stepped through. The train lurched forward. His scream came half a second later. Raw, agonized, then silence. The passengers sat frozen, horror-stricken, as the train came to another grinding stop. The intercom clicked on. Passengers, please use the emergency exit. This time the voice was his. The woman in the suit pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. The teenager backed against his seat, whispering, "No, no, no." Ethan felt his stomach knot. He took a deep breath, forcing logic through his rising fear. "It's a recording," he said. "Some kind of system malfunction. He probably fell onto another track, that's all." But even as he said it, he knew it was a lie. "Passengers, please use the emergency exit." The voice wavered now, warping between the robotic monotone and something disturbingly human. It repeated, stretching the last word, the syllables unspooling into something wet and broken. "Please use the emergen." The lights flickered. The train shifted again, only a few feet forward this time. Then it stopped. The doors didn't open. Something about the way the train moved felt unnatural, like something was testing them, playing with them. The teenager let out a shaky breath. What happens if no one moves? Nobody answered. Then a woman, shaking, rose from her seat. "I can't do this," she muttered, stepping toward the doors. "Wait," Ethan snapped, but she was already there. The second she reached out, the train jerked violently, forcing the doors open as if it had been waiting for her. A split second, and then, gone, vanished into the dark tunnel. No scream this time, just the dull hiss of the intercom activating again. "Passengers, please use the emergency exit." Her voice, a dry, whispering sob, escaped the old man. The teenager bolted to the back of the train, pressing his body against the doors. "It's killing them. It's making them disappear." Ethan swallowed hard, his brain racing. It doesn't make sense. If there's an emergency exit, where does it lead? The old man croaked. Nowhere. Minutes passed. No one moved. The train remained still, waiting. The intercom crackled. Then it spoke again. "Ethan, please use the emergency exit." His name. A cold wave of terror surged through him. The lights dimmed further, the flickering growing erratic. The train wanted him now. Ethan, please use the emergency exit. The repetition dug into his brain, twisting into something insidious. He clenched his fists, heart pounding. No, he whispered. The train lurched forward sharply, then stopped again. The teenager screamed, "It's punishing us for not listening." The intercom repeated his name, distorting, his own voice bleeding through static, already obeying before he had even spoken. "Ethan, please use the emergency exit." He gritted his teeth, pressing his hands to his ears. He wouldn't go. He wouldn't go. A sharp hiss. The doors slammed open on their own, and this time the darkness wasn't empty. Shadowy figures stood just beyond the threshold, motionless, waiting. They had no features, just elongated silhouettes of the passengers who had stepped through before, and yet somehow he could feel them looking at him. A step forward, that was all it would take. A final breath, a surrender. Ethan took a step back. The doors snapped shut. The intercom fell silent. The train lurched violently, then suddenly, smoothly, it started moving again. The flickering lights steadied. Ethan remained frozen, his breath sharp and uneven. The subway was running like normal now. Had he broken the pattern? The teenager let out a laugh, half hysterical, half relieved. "Dude, I think we beat it." Ethan didn't answer. He could feel something wrong. The overhead intercom crackled again, and this time it didn't ask for an emergency exit. Instead it said, "New conductor confirmed. Please remain seated." Ethan's blood ran cold. The lights overhead brightened. The passengers looked around in bewilderment, relaxing, convinced it was all over. But Ethan knew better, because as the train sped through the underground, he felt it. A weight pressing down on him, a presence settling into his body. His own voice drifted through the speakers, calm, robotic. "Next stop." Ethan opened his mouth to scream, but no sound came out. The end. Ethan first heard about the channel from Jess, who thrived on weird urban legends. "It only shows up at 3:13 a.m., she had said, eyes gleaming. "No one knows who broadcasts it. Just whispers. No visuals. Sometimes, though, people hear their names." It was late, they were drunk, and that was exactly the kind of challenge they needed. They sat on Ethan's couch, Marcus scrolling his phone, Lena curled in the corner, Jess perched on the armrest, remote in hand. The TV flickered as she scanned. Nothing. Then at 3:13 exactly, the static warped. A new channel blinked into existence. Channel 71. The screen was pitch black. At first it was silent, then the whispering began. Soft, crackling voices layered over each other. Words just out of reach. The sound of something wet shifting in the dark. Lena shivered. "It feels like..." She trailed off, staring at the screen. Jess turned up the volume. The whispers hissed through the speakers, moving through the room like breath on glass. Then, just for a second, something flickered. A shape, a shadow, and a word. She jolted. The others turned to her, wide-eyed. Ethan grabbed the remote and switched the TV off. The screen went black, but the whispering didn't stop. For 2 full seconds, the voices still murmured in the room. Then finally, silence. Nobody said anything. Jess forced a grin. That was awesome. The next night, they checked again. The whispering was louder now. Then something changed. The black screen flickered, then cut to something else. A live feed. They recognized it immediately. Marcus's apartment, his couch, his half-eaten dinner on the coffee table, the dim glow of his kitchen light. The camera panned slowly down the hallway, lingering just outside his bedroom door. Marcus shot up, his phone buzzing. Motion detected, hallway camera. His hands shook as he unlocked his security app. The live feed matched exactly what was on the TV. Only, on his phone, the hallway was empty, but on the TV, the camera tilted slightly, and the door creaked open. A shape shifted inside. Marcus slammed his phone down. That's not possible. Jess grabbed hers, recording the screen. The moment she hit record, the TV cut to black. Ethan pressed every button on the remote. Nothing. He walked up, reaching to unplug it. The whispering rose. The voices, no longer distorted, were clear now. Let us in. The screen flashed again. A new feed. Ethan's apartment. They were watching themselves on the TV. The camera moved. It panned down Ethan's hallway, toward his bedroom, toward his closet. The door on the screen was open. Something moved inside. Ethan sprinted to his room. Jess and Marcus followed. The closet was closed, but on the screen it was still wide open. And in the shadows, something shifted. Ethan yanked the plug from the wall. The screen didn't turn off. They bolted from Ethan's apartment, gasping, shaking. Jess checked her phone. The recording was gone, not corrupted, not glitching, just gone. Marcus swore he heard footsteps behind them. That night in their own apartments, they each heard whispering. Soft, crawling voices sliding between the walls. At 3:13 a.m., Ethan's TV turned on by itself. The screen was black. The whispering filled the room. Let us in. His phone vibrated. Motion detected, living room. He opened the app, his breath freezing in his chest. His phone showed his own apartment. But the camera wasn't in its usual corner. It was inside the apartment, looking at him. The screen shifted. The camera moved. It was coming down the hallway. It stopped outside his bedroom door. The whispering grew deafening. We are here. The screen cut to black. The next morning, Ethan tried calling Jess. No answer. Marcus, straight to voicemail. Lena, no activity. At work, he checked channel 71. It was broadcasting. A new feed, a new apartment. Someone else sitting on their couch, watching the TV, watching Ethan. The whispering began again. Let us in. The end. Sarah pressed the key into the lock. It didn't turn. She frowned, jiggled it, and tried again. The brass knob remained firm beneath her grip, unyielding. Wrong key. No, this was the one she always used. She stepped back, staring at the familiar apartment door. Her apartment door, marked 4C in tarnished metal numbers. From inside she heard laughter. Her stomach twisted. She took a step closer, pressing her ear against the wood. Glasses clinked. A familiar song drifted through the door, her favorite song. Hello, she called, knocking hard. Who's in there? A shadow flickered behind the peephole. Then her own voice answered from the other side. Wrong apartment. The hallway lights flickered. Sarah stumbled back, heart pounding. No, this had to be a mistake. She had lived here for 3 years. She had just come home from a long shift at the bookstore, groceries in hand, tired but certain that this was her home. She knocked again, harder this time. Who the hell are you? Get out of my apartment. Silence. Then the laughter returned, closer this time, like the unseen guests had shifted toward the door. Glass clinked. The song on the stereo rewound itself and began again. Sarah's pulse thudded in her ears. Something moved in the corner of her vision. She turned. The hallway had stretched impossibly long. Her breath caught. Every other door, the ones that should have lined the hall leading to the stairwell, were gone. She whirled back toward her own door. A slow creak. The peephole darkened. as if someone was looking through from the other side. Sarah's skin crawled. She fumbled for her phone, hands shaking. She'd call the landlord, the police, someone. No service. She stared at the screen. Her apartment Wi-Fi should still work. The signal had always been strong in the hallway. She refreshed. Nothing. Inside the apartment, the music stopped abruptly. The silence pressed against her, thick and unnatural. Sarah's breath hitched. Then, the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps moving toward the door from inside. She staggered back, bumping into the wall behind her. A sharp click echoed. The lock. It was unlocking. The knob twisted. Sarah's body screamed for her to run, but the impossible length of the hallway loomed behind her, an abyss of vanishing doors and stretching darkness. The door creaked open an inch. A sliver of warm golden light spilled into the hall, and then she saw herself, standing just beyond the threshold. Sarah, same tired eyes, same work-worn sweater, same grocery bag in hand. The other Sarah smiled. "No room for two of us," she whispered, voice soft but hollow. "You understand, don't you?" A shadow unfurled from behind her, stretching long and slick across the floor. Something else stood just behind her, just out of sight. Sarah's legs finally obeyed. She ran. Her shoes pounded against the floor, but the hallway kept stretching, growing longer and longer with every step. Behind her, the door creaked open wider. The laughter began again, now distorted, a warped echo of voices that blurred together into something wrong. Her own voice called after her. "Where are you going?" The air turned thick, pressing against her chest. Her legs felt sluggish, like she was wading through water. She reached the end of the hallway. A door that hadn't been there before, loomed in front of her, painted an unfamiliar shade of red. She grasped the knob, twisting frantically. Locked. Footsteps behind her, slow, steady. The smell of something rancid, something old, coiled in the air. Sarah turned. The hallway had gone dark, except for the sliver of light spilling from the crack in her apartment door. Inside, she could still see herself, standing just beyond the threshold. The shadow behind her had grown. Too tall, too many arms. The laughter twisted into a horrible, wet, clicking sound. Sarah's lungs seized. The other Sarah lifted a hand and beckoned. "Come inside." The lights flickered again. Sarah did the only thing she could. She screamed. The sound shattered the silence like glass. Then, everything went black. When she woke, she was standing inside her apartment. The lights were off. The stereo was silent. The air smelled of dust and something faintly sweet, something rotten. Her groceries sat neatly on the kitchen counter. She didn't remember putting them there. Her hands were trembling. Sarah turned toward the door. Locked. A single key rested on the table beside it. She reached for it with numb fingers. It was not her key. A cold, hollow certainty settled into her bones. Somewhere, someone else was standing in the hallway, banging on the door, screaming to be let in. Sarah didn't move, she only listened, and slowly, she smiled. The end. David found the invitation in his mailbox, nestled between a stack of bills and a supermarket flyer. "You are cordially invited to the funeral of David Miller, Saturday, 3 p.m., Whitmore Funeral Home." David let out a dry laugh, some sick joke. He flipped the envelope over, no return address. The paper felt old, as if it had been sitting in a drawer for decades. He should have tossed it, but curiosity had a way of gnawing at him. So at 2:55 p.m., he stood outside Whitmore Funeral Home, A gray building hunched between two vacant lots. Rain drizzled in a lazy mist, making the air feel thick, heavy. He stepped inside. The scent of wilting lilies and polished wood filled his nose. A dozen people sat in pews, dressed in black. Their faces were blurred by tears, their shoulders trembling with grief. David didn't recognize a single one of them. His skin crawled. He cleared his throat, but no one turned. No double takes. No confusion at his presence. At the front of the room, a polished mahogany casket rested under dim chandelier light. A framed photo stood on an easel beside it. David's stomach plummeted. The man in the picture was him, but older. His face bore deep lines, his eyes dulled with time. He looked like he had lived an entire life David had never known. "What the hell is this?" A woman in the front pew sobbed violently, shoulders shaking. "He was such a kind man. He didn't deserve this," whispered an elderly man. A hand gripped David's shoulder. He turned sharply. A tall man in a black suit leaned in, his breath ice cold against David's ear. "We buried you last week. Please, don't make a scene." David recoiled. His pulse pounded so hard his vision blurred. "No," his voice caught. "No, this is a mistake. I'm not." The man gave him a look of pity. David turned on his heel and stumbled toward the door. He needed to leave, now. Then his phone vibrated. A message. "No caller ID. Unknown number. Go back to your grave." His blood ran cold. His fingers shook as he clutched his phone. "Go back to your grave." He bolted. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the air felt wrong, too still, as if the world was waiting. He turned a corner and saw a cemetery stretching behind the funeral home. No. Something deep in his gut told him not to go in. But his legs moved anyway, a force stronger than logic. Rows of weathered headstones stood like silent sentinels. The earth smelled freshly turned. He followed the dirt path, his breath shallow, chest tight until he saw it, a newly dug grave. The headstone gleamed as if it had just been placed. His name was carved into the marble. David Miller, born 1985, died 2024. The dirt was disturbed, unsettled, as if someone or something had crawled out. David stepped forward, his vision tunneled. The grave felt like it was pulling him in. Then, a muffled knock. He froze. Another knock from beneath the earth. The coffin shuddered, the knocks became pounding. Then a whisper. Muffled, but his own voice. David stumbled back. His chest squeezed as if something had taken hold of his lungs. Then the pounding stopped. Silence. The grave no longer looked fresh. The dirt was still, as if nothing had happened at all. David backed away. His foot hit something, a shovel. His hands trembled as he picked it up. An invitation had brought him here. A photo of himself, older, had been placed at that funeral. Had he already lived this life? Had he already died? He drove the shovel into the earth. He dug, hands shaking, breath ragged. The dirt was loose, too loose. Someone had buried this coffin in a hurry. Then his shovel hit something solid. The coffin. David dropped to his knees and pried the lid open. Inside, himself. Pale, mouth slightly open, hands folded neatly. A faint breath of air escaped the corpse's lips. David reeled back, bile rising in his throat. Then, the corpse's eyes snapped open. It smiled. "You were supposed to stay put," David screamed. Darkness swallowed him. He woke up in his apartment. The light of the early morning sun drifted through the blinds. His hands were clean, his clothes unsoiled. His phone sat on his bedside table, blinking with a new notification, a new funeral invitation. This time, the date was tomorrow, the end. Mia noticed Daniel's absence before she even sat down. His desk was empty, not just unoccupied, empty. No computer, no chair, no post-it notes with his terrible handwriting scrawled across them. She frowned. Daniel was always there before her, sipping his coffee like it personally betrayed him. He hated mornings. He hated meetings even more. Every Monday he'd glance at her, sigh theatrically, and say, "Another week in the machine." Today, there was no sigh, no Daniel. A chill ran down her spine, subtle at first. She glanced at her inbox. Daniel's emails were gone, not unread, not archived, just gone. Her pulse picked up. She clicked on the team's Slack channel. He had sent a joke the day before, some dumb meme about spreadsheets and suffering. That was gone too. She stood scanning the office. "Hey, did Daniel call in sick?" she asked Peter from accounting. Peter gave her a blank stare. "Who?" "Daniel. He sat right next to me." Peter shrugged. "Don't think I know him." Mia forced a laugh. "Funny." Peter just turned back to his screen. By lunchtime, she was actively panicking. No one remembered Daniel. Not her boss, not HR, not even the IT guy who once spent an hour fixing Daniel's laptop while he complained. "I think you're mistaken," the HR woman said. "There's no Daniel in this department." Mia clenched her fists. "I worked with him for over a year. We had lunch last week." The HR woman gave a tight smile, the kind reserved for lunatics. "Are you feeling okay?" At home, Mia tore through her phone. Daniel had texted her once, months ago, about an office happy hour she never attended. She found their conversation, or where it should have been, deleted. But there was one unread message from a blocked number. The hairs on her arms rose as she tapped it open. "You noticed. Now they'll notice you." Her breath caught in her throat. She dropped the phone like it burned her. The next morning, Mia arrived at work to find her own desk off. Her chair looked different. Her stapler was missing, and the people, her co-workers, hesitated before greeting her like something was slightly wrong. Her pulse hammered as she checked her inbox. Emails she sent yesterday, gone. Her name was no longer on the team calendar. She swallowed, glancing at her reflection in her monitor. Still there, still Mia. Wasn't she? Mia spent the day testing reality. She asked Liz from marketing about their lunch last Thursday. Liz hesitated, frowned. "Thursday?" "Yes," Mia insisted. "We had sushi." Liz's frown deepened. "I don't remember that." Mia forced a laugh. "Stop messing with me." Liz didn't laugh. By mid-afternoon, Mia's hands were shaking. She ran to the bathroom, locked herself in a stall, and pulled out her phone. She scrolled through her pictures, desperate to find proof. Company party, smiling faces. There, Daniel, standing next to her. She zoomed in, but his face was gone. Just an empty space. The next photo, he had been in this one too, she was sure, but now the background warped slightly, the way Photoshop glitches when someone edits too much. A muffled sob escaped her lips. She was losing it, or reality was. That night, Mia didn't sleep. Every creak in her apartment sent ice down her spine. She locked her bedroom door, kept her phone charging beside her. At 2:13 a.m., her screen lit up. Blocked number. Her breath hitched. She didn't answer. Didn't dare. A voicemail appeared. Hands trembling, she pressed play. Static. Then a voice, whisper thin, wrong, like words dragged across gravel. "Run." The next morning, Mia arrived at work, dizzy from exhaustion. The receptionist didn't look up when she walked past. No one greeted her. At her desk, her nameplate was missing. Her laptop wouldn't log in. Her stomach knotted. "No, no, no." She said, voice barely above a whisper. "Do you?" Peter flinched, a second too long, like she had startled him. His mouth opened, closed. Then quietly, I'm sorry. Mia walked straight to HR. The same woman from yesterday sat behind the desk. Mia's voice cracked. I need you to check something. The woman glanced up, blank-eyed. Who are you here to see? Mia's breath caught. You know me, she whispered. We spoke yesterday. The woman tilted her head slightly. I don't think so. Mia's world tilted. I work here, she hissed. The woman typed on her keyboard, expression neutral. What's your employee ID? Mia froze. She couldn't remember. Her ID badge, she had clipped it to her purse, but where was her purse? Where were her keys? Where was her proof? Her hands shook violently. The woman gave her a small, pitying smile. I'm sorry, miss. We don't have you on record. Mia left the office in a daze. She walked without direction, legs numb, mind fractured. Hadn't she been here before? Hadn't Daniel? No, this wasn't happening. She reached for her phone, her contacts gone, her text history empty, her social media accounts logged out, her photos just landscapes, no people, not a single person. Her breath came too fast. She was disappearing, just like Daniel. The next day her desk was empty, no chair, no computer, just gone. A new hire sat there now, a young guy, quiet, kept to himself. Someone walked past and greeted him. Morning, Daniel. The end. The last train home always felt a little different. Something about the empty seats, the fluorescent lights buzzing in the silence, the rhythmic clatter of wheels against the tracks. It had a way of pulling you under, into that liminal space between wakefulness and sleep. Darren sat slouched in his usual spot, second to last row, near the window. His head leaned against the cool glass, the city lights outside streaking into neon blurs. Just another night, just another ride home. He blinked just once, let his heavy eyes close for a moment. Then, silence. Darren's eyes snapped open. The train was still moving, but something was wrong. The quiet was too deep, too absolute. The usual sounds, the hum of the intercom, the rustling of newspapers, the faint music bleeding from someone's headphones, were gone. The seat across from him, where an older man had been staring at his phone, was empty. So was the one next to it. The woman reading her book, gone. The kid slumped in his hoodie, gone. Every single passenger had vanished. Darren sat up straight, his heartbeat kicking into high gear. He wasn't alone. Somewhere just beneath the mechanical hum of the train there was a sound. A whisper, soft, almost too low to hear. His eyes flicked up to the map above the door. The familiar names, 42nd Street, Elmwood, Union Square, were gone. Just a single, pulsing dot remained. No name, no information. Just one stop ahead. The intercom crackled to life. A voice spoke, distorted like a broken radio transmission. Next stop, final stop. Darren swallowed hard. His pulse thudded in his ears. The train slowed. Outside the window, the usual tiled tunnel walls had disappeared. In their place was darkness, not just the absence of light, but a heavy, endless void. And within it, figures, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, lining the tracks, standing in absolute silence. Their faces were indistinct, shrouded in shadow. They weren't moving. They weren't shifting from foot to foot like tired commuters. They were watching him. A cold dread tightened around Darren's chest. The train came to a full stop. The doors hissed open. Cold air rushed in, bringing the smell of damp concrete and something else, something metallic, like rust. Then, now boarding. Darren's breath caught in his throat. The voice over the intercom was his own. His stomach lurched. He turned to the doors, his hands gripping the seat as if to ground himself. The figures outside still hadn't moved, but but something else had. A single shape stepped forward. Darren's pulse pounded, his hands clenched into fists. The person on the platform moved with deliberate slowness, as if savoring each step. As the dim overhead light flickered, their face was revealed. Darren felt his blood run cold. It was him. Same face, same jacket, same tired, wide-eyed stare. His own double stood just beyond the threshold of the train, head tilted slightly, studying him. Then it smiled. Now boarding, the intercom repeated. The thing took another step forward. Darren stumbled back, his body screaming at him to run, to get away. He lunged for the emergency release beside the door, but his fingers fumbled against smooth metal. The doors slammed shut. The train lurched forward. Darren staggered, grabbing onto a pole to keep from falling. The intercom crackled again. Final stop approaching. The whispering grew louder. It came from everywhere, from the speakers, from the vents, from the very walls of the train. Soft, layered voices, falling, indistinct yet familiar. They were his. Hundreds of voices. Thousands. His breath came fast and shallow. The doppelganger stood at the far end of the car now, still smiling. The train's windows blurred, as if the outside world had ceased to exist. Darren moved backward, heart hammering. "What do you want?" he rasped. The doppelganger didn't answer. It took a step forward, then another. Darren's back hit the cold metal door behind him. The lights overhead flickered wildly. The whispers became a roar. Final stop. The thing lunged. Darren threw up his arms, but it was already inside him. Cold flooded his body. His vision blurred. He felt himself stretching, splitting, unraveling. And then, stillness. Darren opened his eyes. The train was full. Commuters sat in their seats, scrolling their phones, dozing against the windows. The old man, the woman with the book, the kid with the hoodie, all of them were back. Darren let out a shaky breath. A dream, it had to have been. The train slowed. He glanced up at the map above the door. One stop ahead. No name, just a single pulsing dot. His stomach twisted. The intercom crackled. Next stop, final stop. Darren's blood turned to ice. He turned his head slowly, scanning the other passengers. None of them moved. None of them blinked. All of them were staring at him. And then, in perfect unison, they smiled. The train doors slid open. A cold wind rushed in, and from the speakers his own voice whispered, "Now boarding. The end." Elliot wasn't supposed to open that door. It was part of the deal. The apartment was cheap, shockingly cheap considering the rent spikes in the city. A clean one-bedroom unit, spacious, with a landlord who didn't ask many questions, except for one rule. The second bedroom is for storage, the landlord had said. Do not open it. Elliot had nodded. He wasn't the curious type. He had no need for extra space, and if ignoring one locked door meant affordable rent, so be it. But that first night, he heard something. A shifting. A faint creak from the other side of the door. He sat up in bed, listening. The sound stopped. He told himself it was just the old building settling. He convinced himself it was nothing. But the next morning, as he walked past the hallway, he noticed something odd. The door, it wasn't fully closed anymore. It was open, just a crack. Elliot hesitated, then reached out, pressing his palm against the wood. The door swung open effortlessly. Inside, his breath hitched. The room wasn't storage. It was a bedroom. His bedroom. The layout was exactly the same. The same bed, same desk, same cheap lamp he had on his nightstand. Even the same pile of clothes draped over the chair. identical to what he had left in his own room. He took a step inside, heart thudding. Something was wrong. The bedspread was rumpled as if someone had just been lying there. The air was warm, holding the faintest trace of breath. The drawers were slightly open, filled with his clothes. His stomach clenched. This wasn't possible. Then from inside the closet, something shifted. The door creaked. A whisper, his own voice. Elliot slammed it shut. That night, he barely slept. Every creak, every distant hum of the pipes felt amplified. His mind churned with the impossibility of what he had seen. Had the landlord copied his room? Was this some kind of surveillance trick, or worse, had someone been living there? At 3:12 a.m. the sound returned. A soft shuffle from behind the locked door. Then a click. The door unlocked itself. Elliot held his breath. He didn't move. Didn't dare. The knob turned just slightly. Then nothing. The next morning, Elliot did two things. First, he locked the door. Second, he set up his phone to record overnight. He didn't watch the footage right away. It took him hours to work up the nerve. When he finally hit play, he felt sick. The video showed himself asleep, but at 2:47 a.m. something changed. For exactly 2 hours, his bed was empty. Panic wormed through his ribs. He couldn't stay here. He needed answers. He needed to leave. He grabbed his bag, keys, jacket. The door to the other room was wide open. He hadn't heard it open. The bed inside was empty now. His bed. His things. The air felt cold. Elliot took a step closer, pulse hammering in his throat. He scanned the room, searching for any hint of who or what was doing this. But the truth was more horrifying than he could comprehend. It wasn't just a copy of his room. It was his room. His stomach twisted. He turned, stepping back toward the hallway. A voice behind him. "Where are you going?" Elliot whirled around. The closet door creaked open. Inside stood himself. But the thing in the closet was wrong. Its mouth curved slightly too wide. Its skin hung just a little too loose, like a mask stretched over something else. It stepped forward. "You should have stayed out." Elliot stumbled back. His foot hit the threshold of the door. He lunged for the front door, his escape, his way out. His keys didn't fit the lock. The hallway outside was gone. He spun, heart pounding, staring at the impossible sight. His apartment wasn't his apartment anymore. The walls had shifted, the dimensions were off, bending inward. The thing that wore his face smiled. "It's okay, you can stay now." The lights flickered, and darkness. Elliot woke up in bed. The sun poured through the blinds, golden and warm. His heart pounded as he sat up, sweat clinging to his skin. Was it a dream? He turned his head. The other bedroom door was closed. A single breath of relief escaped him. Maybe he had imagined everything. Shaking his head, he stood up, moving toward the bathroom. He needed to clear his head, shake off whatever nightmare had gripped him. Then as he passed the mirror, his reflection didn't move. It stared back at him, smiling. The end. Claire had tried everything. Melatonin, prescription pills, meditation, white noise. Nothing worked. The longest she had ever slept in one stretch was 45 minutes before waking in a sweat, her body locked in a silent scream. It wasn't just exhaustion anymore. It was something else. Something wrong. That was why she signed up for the sleep study. The lab was sterile, a cold fluorescence humming in the ceiling. Electrodes pressed into her scalp. A plastic pulse monitor clipped her index finger. The lead researcher, Dr. Halden, spoke to her in a voice meant to be comforting. "This will help us understand what's happening," he said. "Just relax. Try to sleep." She nodded, letting them lower the hospital bed. The mattress felt like concrete beneath her. The camera in the upper corner of the room blinked red, recording. The last thing she remembered was staring up at it, willing herself to slip into unconsciousness. She woke to the sound of shuffling papers and hurried whispers. Dr. Halden stood by the monitors, his expression carved from stone. His assistant, a younger woman named Meredith, looked pale and unsteady, one hand gripping the desk for support. Claire sat up, rubbing her eyes. Did I sleep?" Dr. Halden turned to her. He opened his mouth, then hesitated. Then finally, "No." A cold weight dropped in her stomach. "What do you mean? You never slept?" He turned the monitor toward her. "You were awake the entire night." The screen showed the recorded footage. Claire braced herself, expecting to see the restless shifting, the tossing and turning she was used to. Instead, she sat up in bed, completely motionless. Her eyes were open, fixed on the camera. Claire swallowed. Maybe I was in some kind of fugue state. Dr. Halden didn't speak. He simply reached for the keyboard and dragged the footage's timestamp forward. 2 hours, 4 hours, 7 hours. Claire never moved. She never blinked. She just stared. The camera's red light flickered slightly with each passing second. The room remained unchanged. Then, a glitch. Just for a fraction of a second, the screen went black, then crackled back to life. Claire's stomach turned as she saw the shift. Something was different. The footage rewound frame by frame. Dr. Halden's hands trembled as he clicked through. There, a single frame, just before the glitch. A face inside her pupils. Not a reflection, not a trick of the light. Something else. It watched from deep inside her gaze, a figure barely distinguishable. Its features were smeared, not quite human. A slack, open mouth, hollow, cavernous eye sockets. Its face bent at unnatural angles, shifting like a body seen through water. Then in the next frame it was gone. Claire's skin turned to ice. "This isn't possible," Meredith whispered, backing away from the screen. Claire forced herself to speak. "It's an error, a camera glitch." Dr. Halden shook his head. "No." His voice was hoarse. The EEG readout. It recorded no brain activity, not sleep, not wakefulness, nothing. He turned to look at her, his hands white-knuckled against the desk. "Claire, for 8 hours you weren't there." Her throat closed. She struggled for words. "I was awake. I was aware." "Were you?" She opened her mouth to argue, but was she? She tried to remember the night, tried to recall anything beyond that first moment of looking at the camera, but her mind was a void. She wasn't there. A tremor ran through her. "What happens if I do it again?" Dr. Halden swallowed. "I don't know." Meredith pushed away from the desk. "We should stop. This isn't normal." But Claire wasn't sure she could stop, because the longer she sat there, the more she felt it. A presence. Something curled deep in her skull, behind her eyes. Just out of reach. She wasn't sure if it had always been there, or if it had just woken up. A slow, icy realization crept up her spine. What if she had never been asleep? What if something else had? And now was watching, waiting, inside her. That night, Claire unplugged her bedside clock. She didn't want to know what time it was. She lay in the dark, her breath shallow, staring at the ceiling. Her eyelids fluttered, heavy with exhaustion. The weight of it dragged at her, pulled her down. But as she drifted, as her mind teetered between sleep and wakefulness, she felt her body sit up, and she realized with absolute certainty she had never closed her eyes. She had never slept. She was watching, and something inside her was watching back. The end. machines. His body was heavy, wrapped in bandages, his limbs numb. The air smelled of antiseptic, sharp and sterile. A soft voice greeted him. "Welcome back, Mr. Fisher." His eyes fluttered open. A nurse stood by his bed, smiling warmly. She adjusted his IV, her touch gentle but impersonal. His throat burned. He tried to speak, but the words came out dry and cracked. "I'm not," he swallowed, forcing the words out. "Not Fisher." The nurse gave a knowing nod. "You've been through a terrible accident. Memory lapses are common." She patted his hand. "Just rest, Mr. Fisher." Panic stirred beneath his grogginess. He tried again, but the nurse had already moved away. His gaze flicked to the table beside him. "Get well cards stacked neatly." "Get well soon, Mr. Fisher." He turned his head. A clipboard hung at the foot of the bed. He could barely make out the typed words through the haze of painkillers. Patient name, Daniel Fisher, address 46 Oakwood Drive. His heartbeat spiked. He wasn't Daniel Fisher. His name was Jake Reynolds. His fingers twitched, slowly regaining feeling. He forced his hand to move, gripping the blanket. With great effort, he shifted his weight and reached for the call button. His thumb pressed it. The same nurse reappeared a moment later. "Yes, Mr. Fisher." "Wrong," he rasped. "My name's Jake." The nurse's smile didn't falter. "You've suffered severe trauma. Confusion is normal." He pushed. "Check. My ID. My wallet." She sighed, shaking her head. "You were brought in without identification, but your records are all here. Your wife confirmed everything." His stomach turned. "My what?" "She'll visit tomorrow." The nurse fluffed his pillow as if that settled the matter. Jake stared at her. This was a mistake. It had to be. They'd confused him with someone else. He needed proof. His eyes darted around the room. A mirror hung on the far wall. He gathered his strength, slowly shifting his legs off the bed. Pain exploded through him, but he clenched his jaw, forcing his feet to the cold tile floor. His reflection stared back at him. The breath left his lungs. The man in the mirror wasn't him. The eyes were unfamiliar. The jawline was sharper, the skin paler. His trembling fingers reached up, touching his face. This wasn't his face. The next morning, a woman entered his room. She was about his age, early 30s, with tired eyes and a nervous smile. "Danny," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Oh God, I was so scared." She rushed forward, pressing her lips to his forehead. He flinched. She wasn't his wife. He didn't even have a wife. "Stop," he gasped, pushing her away. "Who are you?" Her face fell. "Danny, please. It's me, Sarah." "I'm not Danny." His voice cracked. "I don't know you." Her eyes filled with tears. "The doctor said this might happen," she murmured. She turned to the nurse. "He's still confused, isn't he?" The nurse gave her a reassuring nod. "No," Jake whispered. "This is wrong." The doctor arrived a few minutes later, his white coat pristine, his expression calm. "Good morning, Mr. Fisher. How are you feeling today?" Jake clenched his fists. "I am not Fisher." The doctor frowned, flipping through his chart. "Memory gaps are expected after extensive trauma. Facial reconstruction surgeries can sometimes cause disassociation." Jake shook his head violently. "This isn't surgery. This isn't trauma. This is..." He stopped. The doctor's eyes weren't right. Too steady. Too expectant. The doctor leaned in slightly. "Perhaps some fresh air would help. We can arrange a short walk later today." Jake wanted to scream. Later, when the nurses left, Jake searched his room. There had to be something, some clue, some mistake in their fabricated reality. He checked the drawers. More get-well cards. Each addressed to Daniel Fisher. His hospital bracelet. Daniel Fisher. He clenched his teeth. They had changed everything. He found a wallet in the bedside drawer. He snatched it up, flipping it open. An ID card slid out. The name read Daniel Fisher. The face on it was his. No, not his. His pulse pounded in his ears. He needed to get out. That night he attempted his escape. Slipping out of bed, he limped toward the door. The hospital hall was eerily quiet. The exit sign glowed red at the end of the corridor. He moved toward it, his breath shallow, a hand clamped onto his wrist. Mr. Fisher. He spun. The nurse was there, her grip too strong. He shouldn't be wandering. He yanked his arm free. I'm leaving. You know that's not possible. Her voice was soft, almost regretful. Jake's mouth went dry. What is this place? She sighed. It's better if you don't ask. Behind her, 2 orderlies approached. Panic surged. He turned and ran. His bare feet slapped against the cold floor as he sprinted toward the exit. He shoved through the doors and stumbled back into his hospital room. The same bed, the same walls, the same get-well cards. The nurse stood beside him again, untouched, unmoved. Jake's stomach twisted. He turned, his reflection in the mirror. The face was completely different now. Not just someone else, someone new. He clutched his head. No, he whispered. The nurse placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. It's all right, Mr. Fisher. His mouth opened, but no words came. The memories were slipping now. He grasped desperately for his name. Jake, 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 but the syllables felt foreign. A fog settled over his mind. A moment later, he exhaled slowly. The fear eased, his body relaxed. The nurse smiled. You're home now, Daniel. He blinked, looking around the room. The fear had been silly. Of course he was home. His wife would visit soon. Everything was as it should be. The end. Emily saw her son before she heard him. 6-year-old Noah stood at the edge of the schoolyard, his backpack slung over his shoulders, his little hands gripping the straps. But something was off. She couldn't place it. Maybe the way he blinked, too slow, too deliberate. Or the way his lips didn't move when the other children chattered. She shook it off. He's tired, that's all. Noah climbed into the car without a word, buckled himself in, stared at his hands. Hey kiddo, Emily said, trying to shake the eerie stillness that had settled. Good day at school. A long pause. Then in a small voice, you used to sing to me. The car seemed suddenly too quiet. Emily forced a laugh. What do you mean? I still sing to you, silly. Noah turned his head, slowly, too slowly, and met her eyes. Something behind them was wrong. You don't anymore, he said. The drive home felt longer than usual. Dinner was worse. Noah sat at the table, small hands folded neatly in his lap. He didn't eat. He only watched. Emily pushed a forkful of macaroni toward him. Not hungry. He tilted his head. Daddy doesn't remember me. A chill ran down her spine. What? Noah's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. Ask him. She did. Mark frowned at her from the kitchen sink, his beer bottle pausing halfway to his lips. Ask me what? Emily swallowed. Do you think Noah's acting strange today? Mark's brow furrowed. Who's Noah? The room tilted. Her breath caught in her throat. She turned to Noah. He sat perfectly still, waiting. This isn't funny, Mark. He stared at her, blinked. I'm not joking. The air grew dense. A silence stretched between them, heavy and unrelenting. Emily rushed to the living room, heart hammering. She grabbed the nearest framed photo, a beach trip last summer. She had taken it herself. Mark, Noah, her. But now, there were only 2 figures. Noah was gone. That night, Emily sat in Noah's room that's surrounded by tiny fragments of his life. The Spider-Man bed sheets, the small wooden bookshelf, the stuffed rabbit missing an eye. Everything was here. And yet, her phone trembled in her hands as she scrolled through her photos. Her fingers grew cold. There were no pictures of Noah, not a single one. It was as if he had never existed. Her stomach twisted. Her mind rejected it. This is wrong. Then came the whisper. Why are you trying to forget me? Emily froze. The whisper hadn't come from the door, not from the hallway. It came from right beside her. She turned her head, her breath trapped in her throat. Noah stood there, just inches from her face. His lips hadn't moved. She didn't sleep. She didn't tell Mark. She couldn't. By morning, her hands shook as she packed Noah's lunch. What am I doing? Her mind screamed that this was madness, that none of this was real. And yet, Noah sat at the table, kicking his feet against the chair, waiting for her to drive him to school. Except, when she got there, when she pulled up to the familiar curb, Noah's seat was empty. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tight her knuckles turned white. She checked the rearview mirror. Nothing. Tears burned her eyes. Had she lost him? Had she really lost him? Or worse, had he never been there at all? That night, Emily tore through the attic. Old baby clothes, a crib mattress, a box of forgotten Christmas ornaments, and then a locked wooden chest. Her fingers fumbled with the latch. The wood groaned as she wrenched it open, heart pounding, terror coiling in her throat. Inside was a single photograph, a baby, its tiny face scratched out. A jagged scream clawed at her throat. Memories flooded in, horrible twisted fragments. A doctor's voice. The procedure will remove all traces of him. A child screaming, "Mommy, please." A shadowy figure watching. You agreed to this. Emily staggered back. The walls seemed to breathe around her. And then, footsteps, soft, slow, nearing. She turned. Noah stood in the attic doorway. "You took me away once," he whispered. His eyes were endless black pools. "Will you do it again?" Her vision blurred with tears. I didn't." Noah stepped closer. The lights flickered. Behind him, something else moved in the shadows. A second voice whispered, "It's time to decide." Emily fell to her knees, gasping. She looked at Mark. He stood frozen at the bottom of the stairs, watching her clutch at nothing but air. He didn't see Noah. He never had. Mark's voice trembled. "Emily, there's no one there." Noah tilted his head. He doesn't remember. Her mind was unraveling, breaking apart like splintered glass. And then Noah's fingers curled around hers, cold, real. "Please," he whispered, "don't forget me again." Her breath hitched, her choice pressed down on her like a crushing weight. If she lets go, he will vanish. If she holds on, what then? Her vision blurred. She tightened her grip. Reality cracked. And then she woke up. The house smelled of coffee and morning light. She stumbled into the kitchen, heart racing. Mark sat at the table, reading the newspaper. He looked up, smiled. "Hey, you okay?" Emily's lips parted. She hesitated. Then, a small giggle. She turned. Noah sat at the table, kicking his feet against the chair, eating cereal. Her breath caught in her throat. Mark's voice cut through the moment. "Honey." Emily turned back to him. Mark frowned. "Who are you looking at?" Her blood turned to ice. She whipped around. Noah was gone. The chair was empty. But on the table, his cereal bowl was still full. The spoon floated slowly in the air before dropping with a soft clink. And Jordan had been unemployed for almost a year when the offer came. A simple job, data entry, corporate logistics, full benefits. The pay wasn't great, but at this point he would have signed his soul away just to have something steady. So he did. He skimmed the contract, eyes blurring over paragraphs of legalese. The HR rep, a woman named Marcia, smiled across the desk. Just sign here, and one more. Perfect. That was it. He had a job. His first week was normal, boring even. A gray cubicle, a company-issued laptop, corporate emails about upcoming compliance trainings. His badge beeped at the turnstiles, granting him access to floor 12 where he was stationed. The office was sleek, glass walls, sterile lighting, the faint hum of printers. Nothing seemed wrong until Friday. That morning, an email arrived from HR. Your personnel file has been updated. Click here to review. A normal request. But when he opened the file, his stomach tightened. Attached were scanned copies of paperwork, NDAs, tax forms, a resignation letter dated 2 weeks from now, and every document bore his signature. He frowned, flipping through the pages. He didn't remember signing these, but his signature was undeniably his. Jordan's badge started working in places it shouldn't. Restricted areas, the server rooms, the executive lounge. One afternoon, he tested it. The elevator should have denied him access to floor 32, the executive floor. It didn't. When the door slid open, no one was there. Just a long, empty hallway lined with offices, each with their blinds drawn. The air smelled stale, like old carpeting and printer toner. His badge beeped again, logging him in. Somewhere down the hall, a phone rang. Jordan stepped backward into the elevator, his pulse hammering. He pressed 12 and watched the doors seal shut. When he got back to his desk, an email was waiting. Access log detected. Restricted floor, location executive 32, employee Jordan Ellis. The message had no sender. By Monday, Jordan felt it watching. Not a person exactly, but something. When he walked past glass conference rooms, his reflection lingered. The delay was subtle, just half a second, but enough to know. He tested it at lunch, standing in front of a floor-to-ceiling window. He raised his hand. His reflection didn't. His stomach nodded. The glass Jordan stood perfectly still, staring at him. Then it smiled. Jordan backed away, bumping into a coworker. "Oh, sorry." She gave him a weird look. "Didn't know you were back already." His mouth felt dry. "What do you mean?" She laughed. "You were just here a second ago. You went that way." She pointed toward the hallway. Jordan followed her gaze. The corridor was empty. He went to HR. Marcia, the woman who had hired him, greeted him with a bright corporate smile. "Jordan, how can I help?" I think there's a mistake in my file." Marcia tilted her head. "A mistake? My resignation letter is in there. I never wrote it." She typed something into her system, frowning at the screen. "Well," she said finally, turning the monitor toward him. "That's strange. You submitted it on your first day." Jordan stared at the screen. The timestamp read, signed January 3rd, 8:42 a.m., his first day. He shook his head. "No, that's not possible." Marcia tapped a few more keys. Her smile didn't falter. "Well, it's already processed, so today will be your last day." Something cold coiled in his stomach. He stood. "No, that's not right." Marcia's smile widened. "You should head to your exit interview." Jordan's badge beeped. Access granted. The glass doors behind him slid open. The exit interview wasn't in HR. His badge led him up, floor 32. The elevator door slid open with a soft chime. Jordan didn't move. The hallway was exactly as he remembered. Silent, sealed blinds, the faint hum of fluorescent lights. A single conference room door stood open at the end of the hall. Inside, a computer screen glowed. He stepped in, his breath shallow. The screen flickered. A final email loaded. Subject: your position has been filled. Message: thank you for your service. Your transition has been completed. Jordan's mouse moved on its own. The cursor hovered over a document, his resignation letter. The screen blinked. A live video feed replaced it, of himself, standing in this exact room. Except the version on the screen was smiling. His fingers moved without him. He reached forward, clicking the submit button. A small printer on the desk whirred to life, spitting out an employee badge. Jordan picked it up with trembling fingers. It wasn't his name, it was the other him, his smiling reflection, and then he felt it, a presence behind him. His own voice whispered in his ear, "Welcome back." Final employee log entry. Employee Jordan Ellis. Status transition complete. Access unlimited. Welcome to the company. The end. Jack was exhausted. The law firm Cranford and Bell was known for its brutal hours, but tonight was worse than usual. At nearly midnight, the office was empty, except for the hum of the air conditioning and the glow of his computer screen. He cracked his knuckles and rubbed his eyes, staring at a motion to dismiss that blurred into nonsense. Then he remembered the elevator. Every intern at Cranford and Bell heard the rumor. The maintenance elevator, marked "Do Not Use" in faded red paint, wasn't just broken, it was something else. No one really knew why, but the whispers around the office claimed that people who stepped inside alone never came back the same. Jack wasn't one for ghost stories. He was, however, the kind of guy who needed a break. He grabbed his coffee and walked toward the back hallway, where the dimly lit, dented elevator doors sat waiting. "Just one ride," he muttered, smirking. "Let's see what all the fuss is about." Inside, the elevator smelled of dust and stale air. The panel was strange. Every button was dark except one, B1. No lobby, no numbered floors, just B1, glowing softly. Jack shrugged. He pressed it. The doors closed. At first, nothing happened. Then, the numbers above the doors blinked erratically. 12, 3, 7, 9, 4, 2, in no discernible order. The elevator didn't move in a way he could feel, yet his stomach twisted, like falling mid-dream. Then, silence. The doors slid open. Jack stepped out. He was still at Cranford and Bell. The same office layout, the same desks. But the lights were dimmer, the air was thicker. The entire place was suffocatingly still. His desk was different. The coffee cup he'd left was gone, replaced by a thick layer of dust. Files were piled high, yellowed and warped. His name was on them, embossed on aging legal briefs for cases he had never worked. Garrisonville Lindell, 1998. Myers Estate Arbitration, 2004. Jack's breath quickened. A sharp ringing cut through the silence. The phone. He hesitated before lifting the receiver to his ear. "Hello." A pause. Then a whisper, his own voice. "Don't get back in the elevator." Jack's stomach dropped. He turned back, but the elevator doors had already closed. He ran toward them, jabbing at the call button. Nothing. He slammed his fist against the metal. It was cold, too cold, like touching ice. The phone rang again. He turned, heart pounding. The office around him wasn't quite right. The cubicles were warped, their edges slightly curved like they were bending inward. The air smelled musty, like an attic sealed shut for decades. The light overhead flickered erratically, and shadows pooled unnaturally in the corners. Jack lifted the phone again, his hands shaking. "Jack, listen to me," his own voice whispered. "You can leave, but you need to go the long way. Do towards the elevator. It only goes deeper, deeper. He turned around. The hallway leading to the stairwell stretched longer than it should have, extending into a murky darkness. The offices on either side were filled with shadows, their contents barely visible. Something moved. A shape, a figure stood in the farthest cubicle, just at the edge of his vision. It was watching. Jack's pulse hammered in his throat. He took a step toward the hallway. The figure took a step too. Nope. He spun back toward the elevator, slamming his palm on the buttons, trying to pry open the doors. Behind him, soft footsteps echoed across the carpet. Faster, closer. He refused to turn around. A ding sounded. The elevator door slid open, revealing absolute darkness inside. Jack didn't think. He jumped in. The door slammed shut. Again the buttons blinked in erratic patterns, 3, 7, 2, 9, 5, 8, but this time the elevator moved. He felt the lurch, the sinking drop of motion. His breath came in ragged gasps. Then, a ding. The doors opened. Jack stumbled out, knees weak, his office. The real one. The lights were bright. The air smelled of stale coffee and printer ink. He turned, gasping for breath, gripping the edge of his desk like it was an anchor. The maintenance elevator was across the room, its doors still open, but inside he saw nothing. Not darkness, not walls, just more elevators. A never-ending sequence of doors leading deeper and deeper into nowhere. Jack backed away, his mind screaming at him to run, to leave, to never touch that cursed thing again. And as the doors slowly slid shut, he swore he heard his own voice whisper from inside. Next time, you won't make it back. The end. The end. The house was old, but the price was right. Nathan and Lisa Garvey bought the place after months of searching. A towering Victorian with high ceilings, crown molding, and a basement that had been sealed off decades ago. It needed work, but it was perfect for their growing family. Or so they thought. At first, it was small things. Their 2-year-old Oliver giggling at the walls. They assumed he was playing pretend, just a toddler's imagination running wild, until he started whispering back. One night as Lisa checked on him, she heard his tiny voice in the dark. "Okay, I'll ask Mommy." Lisa frowned. "Ask me what, baby?" Oliver sat up in his crib. His cheeks were flushed, his blue onesie wrinkled from sleep. He grinned. "The children want to know if I can stay with them." Lisa's stomach nodded. "What children, sweetheart?" He pointed, not at the window, not at the door, at the wall. The next few nights the noises started. Nathan was a rational man. When Lisa told him about Oliver's late-night conversations, he chuckled. Imaginary friends. Normal at his age. But normal wasn't the soft scratching inside the walls. It wasn't the way Oliver stared at the vents as if listening to something only he could hear. It wasn't the whispering on the baby monitor. Nathan finally investigated after hearing a thump inside the nursery wall at 2 a.m. By the next evening, he was prying open a vent near Oliver's crib. Lisa stood behind him, gripping the baby monitor like a lifeline. The panel groaned as he pulled it free, revealing a crawl space no larger than a coffin. The air that rushed out was thick, stale, like a grave left undisturbed too long. Nathan lifted his flashlight and his breath hitched. The walls inside were covered in tiny handprints, scratched into the wood, dozens of them. No, hundreds. Some deep, like claw marks. Others faint, like a child pressing against the surface. Lisa gasped. "Oh my God." Oliver, standing beside her, giggled. "See, I told you." Nathan sealed the vent. That night, they slept with the lights on. The next morning, Oliver wouldn't stop talking about his new friends. They say the basement is the best place to hide. Lisa's hands trembled as she poured her coffee. What basement, baby? Oliver tilted his head. The one under the floor. The old one. Lisa and Nathan exchanged a look. Oliver didn't know about the basement. The door to it was bolted shut. Not just locked, but sealed with thick wooden planks. Whoever had done it hadn't wanted anyone getting in or out. That night, the baby monitor crackled. Lisa jerked awake, heart hammering. The digital screen flickered, static washing over it like a dying breath. Then came the voice, high, childlike, but wrong. We need a new brother. Lisa scrambled out of bed, shaking Nathan. But Nathan was already up. He'd heard it too. They ran to Oliver's nursery. The crib was empty. The blanket was undisturbed. No signs of struggle. No crying. Just gone. Lisa screamed. Nathan tore the vent panel off the wall, shining the flashlight inside. The crawl space was empty, but something scuttled deeper inside, moving too fast to be a rat. Tiny giggles. Then footsteps, but not in the room. Inside the walls. Lisa clawed at the wallpaper. Where is he? Where's my baby? The baby monitor flickered again. On screen, static. Then an image. The crib still empty. But in the darkness something shifted. A tiny pale hand reached into the frame and turned the monitor off. Nathan went for the basement. He grabbed the crowbar from the tool chest, slamming it against the wooden planks sealing the door. The nails shrieked as they ripped free, splinters raining onto the floor. Lisa was behind him, frozen in fear. Something took him, she whispered. Nathan threw the last board aside and shoved the door open. The air that spilled out was thick, damp, rotten. A stench of earth, of something left to decay for decades, and below them, darkness. A staircase, old and crumbling. Lisa choked back a sob. Then movement. At the bottom in the pitch black, something shifted. A shape, small, child-sized. A voice drifted up from the abyss, light and sing-song. You can come too, Daddy. Nathan's blood turned to ice. Lisa shrieked. Ollie. Tiny footsteps scurried across the basement floor. Multiple sets, rapid, too many. Then the giggling began. Nathan slammed the door shut, throwing his weight against it. Something slammed back. Little hands, dozens of them, beating against the wood. Nathan jammed the crowbar against the latch, reinforcing it as Lisa sobbed against the wall. The sound slowly faded, but not completely. The next morning, Oliver's crib was still empty. The police searched for weeks, no signs of forced entry, no explanation, no Oliver. It made national news. Toddler vanishes without a trace. Nathan and Lisa never gave an interview. They couldn't, because they still heard him. Not in their dreams, not in their memories, in the walls. Late at night, the baby monitor still crackled, and sometimes just before dawn, they heard Oliver's tiny voice whisper, "We just need one more." The end. The cemetery gate groaned shut behind them. Jake turned, expecting to see David laughing, but his friend stood frozen. Who the hell closed that? No one answered. The five of them, Jake, Emma, Liam, Sophie, and David, had entered on a dare. The old cemetery had always been the centerpiece of local ghost stories, and they figured sneaking in at midnight would be fun. A little thrill, a little rebellion. But now, something was wrong. The gate, which had been open minutes ago, was rusted shut. The road outside was gone. Liam rattled the bars. Okay, very funny. Who's screwing with us? Jake took a step back, an uneasy feeling settling in his chest. Look around, Emma whispered. Emmas were different. The headstones were different. Jake squinted at one near his feet. A chill ran down his spine. Jake Anderson, born June 7, 2005, died October 31st, 2025. His breath hitched. His name, today's date. He wasn't the only one. Each grave bore one of their names, the same death date carved deep into the stone. Sophie let out a shaky laugh. Someone set this up. It's gotta be some kind of prank. Emma's voice trembled. Check your phones. They all pulled out their devices. No signal, no Wi-Fi. The battery icons flickered strangely, numbers glitching between full and empty. Liam shook his head. No, this is stupid. There's a house down the road. Let's go. No one argued. They turned, walking quickly toward the far end of the graveyard where the exit should have been. It wasn't there. Instead, the rows of tombstones stretched endlessly in every direction, the wrought iron fence curling around them like a cage. David ran back to the main gate, yanking at the bars. This isn't funny anymore. Then he screamed. The others turned just in time to see him flicker, like a glitch in reality. His body trembled, blurred at the edges. His mouth opened in a silent plea. And then he was gone, vanished. Jake stumbled forward. David, silence. Emma gasped, pointing at his headstone. It was blank. David's name had disappeared. Sophie choked on a sob. No, this isn't real. Liam grabbed her hand. We need to move. We need to find a way out. They ran. The tombstones blurred past them, shadows stretching unnaturally as the air thickened. The wind moaned through the trees like a dying breath. They skidded to a stop at another gate. An exit. Jake lunged for it, fingers curling around the cold bars. It didn't budge. Then Sophie let out a strangled cry. They turned. She was gone. Her headstone was blank. Emma backed away, her breathing ragged. We have to stick together. Liam's voice was hoarse. It's taking us one by one. A whisper skittered through the air. Jake turned in circles. We're missing something. The wind howled, kicking up dust. The cemetery watched them. A new grave had appeared. Liam Carter, born August 3rd, 2004, died October 31st, 2025. Liam's face twisted in horror. No. A hand yanked him backward. He flickered, and then he was gone. Jake and Emma stood alone. Jake clenched his fists. What is this? Emma's fingers dug into his arm. We need to think. Something rustled behind them. A single grave stood apart from the others. A yellowed scrap of paper was wedged under the cracked stone. Emma ran for it, grabbing the note with trembling hands. Jake peered over her shoulder as she unfolded it. The ink was faded, smudged by time. Next time, don't bring 5, bring 6. Jake's stomach turned. What does that mean? Emma turned, her eyes wide. I think it only takes 5. But if there were 6 of us, she didn't get to finish. A whisper curled around them, a wind colder than ice. Emma gasped. Then she was gone. Jake fell to his knees, the note crumpling in his grip. He was alone, except for the paper. The wind whispered through the empty graveyard. The cemetery gate creaked open. Jake didn't move. The words on the note burned into his mind. Don't bring 5, bring 6. A slow realization crept in, colder than the grave beneath his feet. The cemetery wasn't done. It was waiting. Jake's heart pounded as he stood. He had survived, but why? The answer gnawed at him as he turned toward the gate. Whatever force haunted this place, whatever had taken his friends, it needed someone left behind. To spread the story, to bring more. Jake's grip tightened on the note. He walked toward the exit, his shadow stretching long behind him. The cemetery had let him go. For now, the end. wakes to the sound of her phone buzzing. Too early, too dark. She fumbles for it, eyes barely open. A notification. 32 new photos added to your gallery. Confused, she unlocks her screen. The gallery app loads. Her breath catches. They are all photos of her. Her sleeping form turned on her side, one arm draped over her pillow. Another shows her eating dinner, the glow of the TV in the background. One of her walking home in her red coat, her breath visible in the cold air. A chill spreads through her. She didn't take these. Her eyes dart to the photo details, taken at 2:14 a.m. Inside her apartment, the last one, her bedroom, pitch black except for a faint outline of her body. And something else. In the corner, half hidden by the doorway, a blurred figure stands behind her. She sits up fast, heart hammering. The apartment is silent, too silent. She glances at her bedroom door. Closed. She checks the locks twice before crawling back under the covers, clutching her phone. Deleting the photos should make them disappear, should make this all go away, but it doesn't. The next morning she resets her passwords, updates her security settings. It has to be some kind of hack. Maybe someone accessed her cloud, maybe her camera was compromised. But then more photos appear. This time there are 40 new pictures, a sequence. Her brushing her teeth, her leaving for work, her coming home, and in every single one the blurred figure is getting closer. She calls the police. A bored-sounding officer listens as she explains. He asks her to check for hidden cameras. She tears her apartment apart. Nothing. They tell her to file a report. They don't sound convinced. By the next night, she moves her phone across the room before sleeping. If she's somehow taking them in her sleep, she won't be able to reach it. At 3:27 a.m., she wakes with a start. The room is cold. The air feels thick, heavy. She grabs her phone. 5 new photos added to your gallery. The first few are like before. Her sleeping, her apartment dark and still. Then, the last image. The figure is standing right next to her bed. She breaks her lease the next day, moves to a new apartment across the city. Different locks, different windows. She buys a new phone, resets everything, leaves the old one in a dumpster. For 3 nights, nothing happens. Then, on the 4th night, her phone buzzes at 2:33 a.m. She already knows what it is before she looks. 20 new photos added to your gallery. Her hands shake as she scrolls. The same pictures, the same apartment, the same sleeping form. But the last one, it's worse this time. The figure is not blurred anymore. It's her, not quite her. The smile is too wide, the eyes too bright. The head tilts just slightly like it knows something she doesn't. Her stomach lurches. She throws the phone across the room, but the screen stays on, waiting, watching. Anna doesn't sleep that night. She buys a camera the next morning, a real camera, one that doesn't connect to anything, one that only she can control. She sets it up before bed, pointing it at her room. At dawn, she plays the footage. At first, it's normal, hours of stillness. Then at 2:48 a.m., the bedroom door opens. A shadow moves inside, a shape wearing her face. It walks toward the bed and stands over her, watching, breathing. Anna's breath quickens as the camera glitches. The screen flickers. In the last frame, her sleeping body is gone. Instead, the Anna in the video is staring directly at the camera, and she is smiling. She rewinds the footage, eyes scanning for some trick, some rational explanation. But there is none. The footage never skips. No signs of tampering. Then she notices something. In the background, just before the final frame, her reflection in the closet mirror. She is still in bed, still sleeping. Yet the woman in the center of the room is also her. She slams the laptop shut. Her pulse pounds in her ears. There were two of her. Anna wakes up feeling different. The apartment feels normal now. The air isn't heavy. The shadows don't move. Everything is clear. She picks up her phone. It's no longer glitching. She turns on the front camera, a live preview of her face. She tilts her head slightly and smiles. Click. The next morning her phone buzzes with a notification. One new photo added to her gallery. Her hands tremble as she opens it. The image loads. It's her, standing in front of the mirror. But in the reflection, the woman looking back isn't smiling. She is screaming. The end. David checked into the Langley at 11:47 p.m. The night clerk, a pale woman with heavy-lidded eyes, barely glanced at him. One night, he said, handing over his card. She slid an old brass key across the counter. Room 214, elevators down. The carpet muffled his footsteps as he took the stairs. Everything smelled faintly of dust and something sweet, like rotting fruit. His room was clean, too clean. The air felt scrubbed, the linens crisp. The only imperfection was the large mirror opposite the bed, smudged with fingerprints. David set his suitcase on the chair and ran his fingers over the marks. The prints were wrong, too high, too spread apart, like someone had pressed their whole face against the glass. He rubbed them with his sleeve, but they wouldn't wipe away. He let it go. It had been a long drive. One night, then back to normal. The lobby smelled of burnt coffee. Checking out, David said, setting his key on the counter. June, the night clerk, didn't take it. She frowned at him. Checking out. He stopped. Her name tag was different. Last night it had read June. Now it said Elaine. "You live here, Mr. Holt," Elaine said. David gave a short laugh. "No, I checked in last night. Just one night." She glanced at something behind the desk. "Sir, you've been here for..." She hesitated, tilting her head. "Years." The room swayed. "What the hell are you talking about? Your belongings are in your room. We have you in the books for years now." His voice cracked. "Check the security footage." Elaine didn't argue. The old man at the concierge desk barely looked up as she led David into a back office. The monitor hummed to life. The footage played in grainy black and white. David entered the hotel. Then again, and again, over and over, every night for months. Each time, his movements were identical. The same way he turned his head, the same second he reached into his pocket, the same flicker of hesitation before stepping forward. It wasn't possible. His hands went numb. This is fake. Elaine didn't speak. "Check my room," he demanded. "My stuff is there. My suitcase, my phone." Room 214 was different. The suitcase was gone. His toiletries, clothes, everything gone. The closet door stood ajar, revealing a few shirts hanging neatly on the rack. Not his shirts. A brown leather suitcase, old, scuffed, sat in the corner. He knelt beside it, unzipping it slowly. Inside, clothes that weren't his. A shaving kit, a faded book of crossword puzzles, half completed in handwriting he didn't recognize. David backed away. The mirror caught his reflection. The fingerprints had doubled. And then he saw it. In the reflection, something shifted. Not in the room, just in the mirror. David's breath hitched. His hands trembled as he pressed his fingers against the glass. More fingerprints appeared, pressing from the other side. A knock at the door. David jumped back. A small white envelope slid under the door. He stared at it. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. Slowly, he crouched down, picked it up. The envelope was unmarked. Inside, a single slip of paper. Stop asking questions. You live here now. David ran. He hit the lobby at full speed, ignoring the stunned glances from guests who nodded at him as if they knew him. He pushed past them and slammed his hands against the front doors. They didn't budge. He pounded harder. The outside world was gone. No street, no city, just darkness pressing against the glass. Elaine watched from the desk, expressionless. She reached up, turned the vacancy sign to occupied. David stumbled back, chest heaving. What is this? The concierge finally spoke. You shouldn't have looked in the mirror. David turned. Elaine sighed. You always make it worse for yourself. What the hell are you talking about? She didn't answer. The night outside flickered like a dying film reel. The streetlights came back. A taxi passed by. David ran to the stairwell. Room 214's door was wide open. The mirror was waiting. But something was wrong. There was a shape in the bed. David froze. His skin prickled with cold. Slowly he stepped forward. The sheets rose and fell. Whoever was in the bed was breathing. The mirror's fingerprints had tripled. David reached for the sheets with a shaking hand. He pulled them back and stared into his own sleeping face. His double's eyes snapped open. A grin split across his face. David staggered back, gasping. The mirror showed nothing. A knock at the door. A new envelope slid under. David's hands trembled as he opened it. Welcome home. He turned back to the bed. His double sat up, smiling. David lunged for the mirror. If he could just break it, his reflection, the one that wasn't there before, raised a hand, pressing it against the glass from the other side. David's breath caught in his throat. The reflection leaned forward, pressing its forehead against the glass. Its lips parted and spoke. I told you, you live here now. David stumbled back. His legs buckled. The last thing he saw before the world went dark was the mirror, and his reflection stepping out. David stepped back, but the mirror held no hesitation. His reflection was already walking toward him. The end. And that's the end. But the night is far from over. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Tell me, are you still awake? Or did the whispers follow you into your dreams? If sleep won't come just yet, there are plenty more stories waiting for you. Go on, pick another. I'll be here.